Chapter 533. The incomparably tyrannical extreme Yang fire broke through Ji Dong's sacred flame, Saint King armor, and surged into his body, wreaking havoc. Ji Dong groaned and held his chest with his hand. He opened his mouth and puffed out a gust of hot air. The temperature in the shop soared to more than 500 degrees. Ji Dong, are you all right? Chen Sichuan's soul rang out in Ji Dong's mind almost immediately. Ji Dong immediately replied, "Don't worry, I'm fine. I just wanted to buy something." With Ji Dong's reply, the heavenly stem holy disciples outside who heard the commotion didn't charge in. The red-clothed woman's beautiful eyes revealed some shock. She looked at Ji Dong with some curiosity and furrowed her brows. "Just who are you?" She didn't know which race this person in front of her belonged to. Since he was able to take her attack head-on and didn't seem to be injured, he was definitely not a nobody in the core world. With his cultivation, why didn't he block her attack and instead took it head-on? Ji Dong really wasn't injured. His saint-tier body was just too tyrannical. Furthermore, the red-clothed woman's attack just now was just a casual one. She hadn't used her full strength. Even so, he still had to take a few deep breaths to calm his shaken internal organs. He had indeed taken the attack on purpose. The reason was very simple. He wanted to shatter the pain in his heart. When he saw this person who looked like the flaming bar, but immediately understood that she wasn't the flaming bar, Ji Dong's heart felt as if it had been pierced by 10,000 swords. The pain was so intense that he couldn't breathe. Thus, he would rather take the attack from a woman and develop some resentment towards her. At the same time, he could use the pain in his body to temporarily break free from his thoughts of the flaming bar. Don't look at indecent things. I'm sorry, I wasn't polite just now. It's only right for me to take your attack. Ji Dong forced himself to turn his head and not look at the woman. At the same time, he used his soul to convey his intentions. Hearing his words, the red-clothed woman's eyebrows relaxed a bit. Hyoheim nodded. "At least you understand etiquette. What do you want from me?" Ji Dong said, "I just saw the ore you placed in front of the door. If I'm not wrong, this ore is exactly the same material as the core elder's token. May I ask, what kind of ore is this and what's the price?" The red-clothed woman said faintly, "This is the fire god stone, also known as the jade of earth. It's as famous as the jade of heaven in the human world. In terms of quality, it's not as useful as the jade of heaven, but inside it, it can condense solid fire elements more than 100 times its volume." You're not wrong. The Holy Church's core elders all have a token made from it. It's used to store a life-saving skill. As long as you use your own mana to activate it, you can directly release it. My place is the only place in the entire core world that sells Jade of Earth. According to the rules, as long as you take out something of equal value to exchange for it, you could do so. Jade of Earth is divided into 3 grades. Low grade can store ordinary killing skills and is cheap. Middle grade can store elementary, super killing skills. High grade can store advanced, super killing skills. The ones you see the core elders have are only middle grade fire god stones. I have all 3 grades here. Jade of Earth. As soon as he heard this name, Ji Dong felt a headache coming on. Without a doubt, the value of this earth jade was extraordinary. It was impossible to have a large amount of it. Moreover, he knew that he didn't have anything that could be used to purchase it. He was also a fire magic master. Even if that fatty Zhou Xiao was here, he would also have a headache. At the same time, as he calmed down, Ji Dong became more and more interested in the red-clothed woman. It was not because she looked like the flaming bar, but because Ji Dong was surprised to find that he could not see the strength of the woman in front of him with his soul power. Based on this, he could be sure that the cultivation of the red-clothed woman was above the Fire Owl King. The Fiery Lotus tribe was indeed the tribe of the flaming bar. The red-clothed woman's body should be condensed from energy, just like the flaming bar. She was only the owner of the shop, but her cultivation had reached such a level. Perhaps she was comparable to the Taichung Lord, Lin Qing. Using human standards, she should be at least level 97 or even level 98. Ji Dong sighed and shook his head. "I don't know if there's anything of this value that I can exchange with you." The red-clothed woman was stunned for a moment. Her gaze towards Ji Dong changed. She said faintly, "Then don't waste my time." Then, She turned around and was about to leave. Jidong hurriedly said, "Wait." The red-clothed woman stopped and turned to look at him. "What else do you want?" Jidong said, "How about this? Tell me what you want, and I will try my best to find it for you. I need a large amount of jade of earth." The red-clothed woman glanced at Jidong coldly and said, "A large amount of jade of earth? Don't tell me you want to start a war?" Jidong shook his head and said, "No, of course not. At the very least, I don't want these jade of earth to be used here. If I told you that I'm a friend of the Fire Lotus tribe, would you believe me?" As he spoke, he looked straight at the red-clothed woman again. At the same time, he took off the mask on his face. The red-clothed woman was clearly stunned when she saw Jidong's face. In the core world, the Fire Lotus tribe looked almost the same as humans. In fact, they were almost perfect humans. However, only the Fire Lotus tribe was like this. The Fire Lotus tribe also had a special characteristic. They were all women. When the red-clothed woman saw a man like Jidong, a strange feeling immediately arose in her heart. This was especially so when she saw Jidong's clear eyes. There was no pretense at all, only sincerity. However, the red-clothed woman's cultivation was shocking. She was only stunned for a moment before she returned to normal. "You are a human?" An ice-cold, murderous intent was instantly released from the red-clothed woman's body. Jidong nodded calmly and said, "That's right, I am a human. Moreover, I am one of the elders who will be participating in the acting leader selection meeting. According to the rules of the Holy Church of the Flaming Bar, even if you are a human, as long as you come to the 15th level with a token, you can participate in the Holy Church's celebration. Am I right?" The red-clothed woman withdrew her murderous intent and said in a low voice, "You seem to know a lot." Jidong nodded silently and acknowledged her words. He said, "I want the jade of the earth to bring it back to the human world. There will be a great war in the human world soon, so I need the jade of the earth." The red-clothed woman said, "My name is Hong Yen. If you want the jade of the earth, sure, but I have one condition. The great god of the Holy Church of the Flaming Bar, the great totem of the Red Lotus race, and the ruler of the core world, Her Majesty the Flaming Bar Empress, has been missing for a long time. According to the information I received, she went to the human world and returned to the core world, which resulted in a huge magical wave. My condition is that you must help me find a reason for Her Majesty's disappearance, or find any traces of Her Majesty. If you can do that, then I will do my best to provide you with the jade of the earth." After hearing her words, Jidong couldn't help but be stunned and was momentarily speechless. If this condition had been raised by someone else, then it would have been more difficult than the sum of the 3 tests that the foolishly rich Hyoheim had proposed. After all, the departure of the Flaming Bar was related to the celestial realm. However, this condition had been raised by Jidong. Apart from Jidong, no one knew exactly what had happened. Seeing Jidong's stunned expression, Hong Yin said plainly, "I also know that this condition is difficult, but it is very important to the Fire Lotus race. Since you are a human and can come here, then you must have the ability to return to the human world. The Fire Lotus race cannot leave this place. If you want to prove that you are our friend, then do your best to help us find this information. Even if you only get some relevant information, I can consider giving you some lower-grade jade of the earth. My condition will be valid for a long time until you can bring me all the accurate information." After saying this, Hong Yin turned around and walked towards the side door that she had appeared from. Wait a minute. In a flash, Jidong had already arrived beside Hong Yin. He raised his hand to grab her shoulder. In front of him, the Red Lotus twisted her body slightly and made an unimaginable movement with incomparable flexibility. She easily dodged Jidong's hand. When Jidong looked at her face again, Hong Yan's eyes were filled with killing intent. She said, "If it wasn't for the fact that you are a human and can help me obtain information, I would definitely kill you. If you dare to touch me again, I will make you regret that you are a living person." Jidong said apologetically, "I'm sorry, I was rash. I only wanted to tell you what you want to know. I can give you the answer now." "What did you say?" Hong Yan's eyes widened as she stared at him in disbelief. Jidong said in a low voice, "I said, I can tell you everything you want to know now. I'm afraid that in the entire human world, I'm the only one who can explain this clearly to you. Ji-dong had only used a short amount of time to make this decision. He knew that his decision was extremely irrational. If it was another race, he would definitely not make such a deal and expose himself. However, this was the Fire Lotus Castle. This was the race that the Flaming Bar had single-handedly created. The woman in front of him bore a 70% resemblance to the Flaming Bar. This favorable impression was enough for Ji-dong to change his mind. It could even help him make a decision. Based on his rational judgment and his perceptual knowledge, Ji-dong had already made up his mind. Hong Yan's gaze became cold and severe. An unprecedented killing intent rose from her body as she said, "You must understand the consequences of deceiving the Fire Lotus clan." Ji-dong said calmly, "I've never thought of deceiving them. Naturally, I don't need to know the consequences." Hong Yan nodded and said, "All right, tell me." Ji-dong took a deep breath. Unconcealable sorrow flowed through his eyes as he said, "No amount of words is as direct as replaying the scene from back then. Watch." As he spoke, Ji-dong's eyes had already turned silver. A powerful soul force seeped out from his body. Sensing Ji-dong's incomparably tyrannical soul undulations, Hong Yan could not help but take a step back. Her beautiful eyes revealed a look of disbelief. Although she had previously sensed that the man in front of her was very powerful, Ji-dong's aura had always been reserved. She could also clearly sense that Ji-dong's magic was inferior to hers. However, at this moment, when Ji-dong released his soul undulations, she finally understood that the power of this man in front of her had far exceeded her expectations. Two rays of silver light shot out from Ji-dong's eyes and landed on the wall in front of him. The silver light was like water as it gently rippled. Gradually, an image appeared within the silver light. Hong Yan knew that she could not achieve this by relying on soul force, but she understood what Ji-dong was doing. Ji-dong was using his powerful soul force to display the fragments of memories. What kind of powerful soul force was required to achieve this? Feeling Ji-dong's soul undulations, Hong Yan's trust in him increased. Within the silver light, the image became clearer and clearer. Hong Yan could see that what was being displayed was indeed not the situation of the underground world, the Holy Evil Island. This was the beginning of the memory that Ji-dong had given her. That scene was when he, Fury, and the others went all out to stop Dark Fate from completing the ceremony. Following that, the radiant heavenly stem saints appeared, and tragedies that should not have happened one after another. Even though she was watching Ji-dong's restored memories, Hong Yan could clearly feel the immense pressure of the myriad lightning tribulation realm. Just as the man in front of her was about to die, the flaming bar appeared. When Hong Yan saw the flaming bar, her body could not help but tremble violently. She took a step back and almost knelt on the ground. To the Fire Lotus tribe, the flaming bar could be said to be their god of creation. Without the flaming bar, they would still be red lotuses in the 18th layer of the core. It was because of the awakening of the flaming bar that the Fire Lotus tribe had their current situation. Every member of the Fire Lotus tribe worshipped the flaming bar blindly. Suddenly seeing the existence of the flaming bar, how could she not be excited? At this moment, Hong Yan heard a voice in her soul. It was the voice from the holy evil battlefield. You are a human who is willing to sacrifice yourself to the darkness. I have never thought of interfering with the affairs of the human world. However, your actions have already threatened the people I love. I can tell you that I am not from the divine world, and I should not be here. However, I had to come. You have activated the world of myriad lightning calamity, causing the lives of countless people to be plunged into misery and suffering. Today, I will act on behalf of the heavens and destroy your body and soul. Chapter 534. Ji-dong's movements not only brought Hong Yan images, but also sounds. When Hong Yan heard the sound of the flaming bar, she was so excited that she could not control herself. Even though she had only seen the flaming bar a few times in her life, every time she saw the idol and god of the entire tribe, it left a deep impression on her. That's right. This was the voice of the Lord of the Flaming Bar. There was no mistaking it. Everything that she was seeing was naturally real. In the next moment, Hong Yin was completely in shock. She could not believe that the Supreme Lord of the Flaming Bar would say such a thing. Lover? She actually called this man in front of her lover. Heavens! The gaze of the Lord of the Flaming Bar was so gentle and gentle. It was completely different from the supreme majesty in her memory. Who was this man? Why would the Lord of the Flaming Bar call him lover? With a heart full of doubts and shock, Hong Yin continued to watch. What followed was the scene of the Flaming Bar turning the tide, forcefully breaking the infinite lightning calamity realm, and using the Red Lotus heavenly fire to block everything. The shock of the ultimate killing technique made Hong Yin almost unable to breathe. At this moment, she realized that the man who was releasing the memories of his soul was already in tears. The Flaming Bar, are you not feeling well? Ji Dong asked worriedly. No. The Flaming Bar shook her head, choking with sobs. She raised her head, her eyes filled with endless gentleness and deep love. Ji Dong, can you dance with me? Just like when we were in the Heavenly STEM Academy. In the beautiful melody that seemed to be playing in the air, Ji Dong danced with the Flaming Bar. In the melody of the music, Ji Dong took a step to the left. The hand that was holding Raging Flame's waist exerted a little force, and under his control, Raging Flame's body moved with him as if it was as light as a feather. With every step he took, Ji Dong could feel that his feet were firmly planted on the ground. This sky that was filled with a dense red light was the dance floor for him and Raging Flame. Their dance was so beautiful that it was suffocating. The Flaming Bar was very light, very soft, but extremely hot. Ji Dong's dance was noble and elegant, every movement extremely exquisite. The Flaming Bar's dance was light and graceful, nestled in his arms, perfectly coordinated under his lead. Seeing this, Hong Yin felt as if something was stuck in her throat. An emotion that she had never felt before started to spread in her heart. This was such a pure feeling. What kind of emotion was this? The shock in her heart gradually disappeared, feeling the pure emotion between Ji Dong and the Flaming Bar in the image. She could not help but put herself in the shoes, as if she was the Flaming Bar in the image. Ji Dong, kiss me, the Flaming Bar murmured softly. Ji Dong lowered his head, their lips touched gently. He was afraid that his actions would hurt the Flaming Bar, so he kissed her lips gently. Her lips were warm and moist, even trembling a little. Raging Flames slowly closed her eyes, her long eyelashes trembling slightly on her eyelids. Tears flowed down the curve of her perfect face. Lord Flaming Bar is crying. Lord Flaming Bar is actually crying. Hong Yin subconsciously clutched her chest and bit her lower lip. The scene in front of her was completely beyond her imagination. Is this really the Lord Flaming Bar in my heart? My Red Lotus heavenly fire boundary cannot be broken even by the dark divination who has fused the mana of the four sacred beasts. Even without the support of my mana, it will not disappear within 5 years. 5 years should be enough for you and the humans on the 5 elements mainland to react. You are all Ji Dong's friends and companions. I hope you can help him in the future. Thank you. Ajin, please help Ji Dong take care of the Sacred Evolution, Flaming Dragon, and the Eclipse Phoenix. I'm going to take Ji Dong back to the Earth's core lake. Take good care of yourself. When Ji Dong comes back, help me take care of him. Mao Tai Wu Yang Ya. Be good. Let's go home. To me, the Earth's core lake is my home, and it is also your home. I know you must have a lot of questions in your heart. I'll tell you all of them this time. The scene suddenly changed and turned completely red. When the light reappeared, Ji Dong and Flaming Bar had already returned to the world of the Earth's core lava lake. If it was any other creature in the Earth's core world, they would definitely not be able to tell if this was real or not. However, as a member of the Fire Lotus race born from the Earth's core Red Lotus, Hong Yin naturally knew that that was once her home. What Hong Yin saw next was the scene of Flaming Bar nestling in Ji Dong's arms. She softly told Ji Dong everything that belonged to her. Every word made Hong Yin's heart beat faster and faster. At that moment, she did not respond to everything that Ji Dong had shown her. Apart from the real Empress, who else could explain her origins so clearly? At the same time, Hong Yin could deeply feel the deep affection that Flaming Bar had for Jidong. Hong Yin finally understood the inexplicable feeling in her heart that she had never felt before. It was touching because of everything that had happened between Jidong and Raging Flames. She had never thought that Her Majesty the Empress would fall in love with a human. But from what Her Majesty the Empress had told him, it could be seen that the feelings between them came from the heart of Raging Flames. Empress, you actually fell in love with a human at that moment. The thing that Hong Yin wanted to know the most happened. The god of massacre, Shupness, had descended, and a grand battle between gods had unfolded on the 18th floor of the Earth's core. Even now, Hong Yin could still remember that the entire Earth's core had trembled due to the sudden appearance of a huge mana fluctuation. Clearly, that was the cause of the changes in the Earth's core. The Empress was actually facing an attack from a god. When the final moment arrived, when Flaming Bar had used the deity disintegration technique to fight Shupness, and when Flaming Bar was about to die in order to save Jidong, Hong Yin could no longer hold back her tears. At that moment, she clearly knew that in her heart, emotions that only humans should have had appeared. Jidong, hurry up and use the fire god's sword to retract his consciousness, Flaming Bar said weakly. Human, what are you doing? Shupness shouted in a low voice. Jidong looked at him coldly and said, What am I doing? Do you still need to ask me? Shupness, there's nothing more to say between us. Die. Wait a minute, Shupness shouted anxiously. What? Are you still trying to stall for time? Do you think I'll give you that chance? No, I think we could discuss this, Shupness said in horror. Discuss? Sure, I only have one request. Help Flaming Bar recover. If you do that, I might let you live. Shupness angrily said, No, that's impossible. Let alone the fact that I can't help an abyssal demon recover. Even if I wanted to, I don't have that ability. Even the Azura god can't do it. Only the two God Kings have that kind of power. But why would the God Kings be willing to save an unfathomable demon like her? Bastard, shut up. Jidong roared. Shupness, you keep talking about abyssal demons and unfathomable demons. Let me ask you, on what basis do you say that Flaming Bar is a demon? What evil deeds did she do to affect the divine realm? Or did she affect the humans? The only time she took action in the human world was to prevent a great calamity. She's a demon? Compared to her, you're the real demon. After the Flaming Bar was born, she reorganized the core world and put everything in order. There are no more wars. She hasn't done anything to harm the world. So what basis do you have to arrest her? Only your divine realm can have gods, but our human world can't have gods? What right do you have to decide the fate of the Flaming Bar? Who the hell do you think you are, gods? Why, you're committing treason. She's not human. Wait, listen to me. Although I can't help her recover, you're a human, so I can help you. As long as you don't destroy my divine sense, I'll swear a divine oath that once I recover, I'll give you a third of her power. You'll become the closest existence to a god. That's the limit of my authority. Do you know who she is? She's an unfathomable demon. Oh no, an unfathomable god. In the face of death, Shupness couldn't help but panic. He no longer cared about maintaining his dignity as an enforcer of the divine realm. Jidong nodded. An unfathomable demon? All right, so what if she's an abyssal demon? She has another identity. What is it? Shupness looked at Jidong in shock. Jidong turned his head and looked at the Flaming Bar, whose body had become even more illusory. However, the two swords in his hands carried an unparalleled aura and the power of the fusion of his soul and primal chaos. They swept out towards Shupness' divine sense. The moment before his divine sense was devoured, Shupness heard Jidong's voice. She's my lover, and I'm someone who's fallen in love with a demon. Hong Yin was dumbfounded. The Death God's promise was actually a third of the Flaming Bar's power. Heavens, what kind of promise is this? She naturally knew how powerful a third of the Flaming Bar's power was. That was at least the power of a peak saint, and the man in front of her had looked extremely weak at that time. The last words that Jidong had said before he attacked had deeply shaken Hong Yin. She's my lover, and I'm someone who's fallen in love with a demon. At this moment, the red-haired woman who looked 70% like a raging flame actually felt an emotion called envy. She envied the god that she revered so much in her heart. Jidong, don't be like this, okay? The flaming bar smiled at Jidong. Her voice was very gentle and didn't sound weak, but it was precisely because of this that Jidong's heart trembled. Can you say that you love me one more time? I love you. I love you. I'll always love you. I'll love you forever and ever. I'll love you forever and ever. Flaming bar, I love you. Jidong, I love you too. I'm sorry, Jidong. I once told you that if I told you that I love you one day, it would be the time when I had already prepared my wedding dress. However, I can no longer be your bride now. I'm about to leave this world. Promise me, if you really love me, then help me fulfill my only regret. I hope that for the next 10 years, you'll be able to make a cocktail for me every year using a famous wine from the wine register, okay? No, no, no. Flaming bar, you're my bride. I'll never let you leave me. Flaming bar. Jidong, don't be like this. How can I be at ease if you do this? The smile on the flaming bar's face finally couldn't be maintained. She looked at Jidong in a daze. Her gaze was still as gentle as ever, but with a strong sense of unwillingness. She said, Jidong, do you know? I don't regret it. Really, I don't regret knowing you. You made me feel the emotions that humans have, and you also made me feel the beauty of love. I don't regret it. If there's a next life, I'll definitely wear my wedding dress and wait for you to marry me. No, I don't want a next life. Jidong was almost shouting. His face and body were already covered with his own tears of blood. Suddenly, as if he had thought of something, he stood up abruptly. His body was trembling, but his gaze became crazy. I've got it. Flaming bar, hold on. I've got it. This is the only way we can never be separated. Under the flaming bar's astonished gaze, Jidong suddenly raised his right hand. A blinding white light shone from his palm. The flaming bar could clearly see that what appeared in Jidong's palm was his chaos pearl. Without the slightest bit of hesitation, his right hand had already slapped the top of his head amidst raging flames' cries of surprise. The soul vortex hidden between his brows was forcefully shaken out by the power of the chaos pearl. Immediately after, his soul vortex frantically engulfed the flaming bar's soul and forcefully pulled it into his body. Heavens! Hong Yin subconsciously covered her mouth with her hands to prevent herself from screaming. What crazy man this was! He had actually shaken his own soul out of his body. He wanted to use his own body to carry Her Majesty's soul. All the confusion in her heart turned into gratitude at this moment. Hong Yin suddenly realized that in her mind, she actually completely approved of the Lord Flaming Bar's choice. The man before her was indeed worthy of her love. Even though Hong Yin still didn't understand what love was. For a person to have the courage to destroy his own body and soul for another person, this was already beyond Hong Yan's imagination. Chapter 535. All the images ended when Jidong woke up from his coma. The last thing Hong Yin saw in the image was Jidong's empty eyes and his head of lusterless white hair. The silver light gradually faded from Jidong's eyes. His tears had long since evaporated under the high temperature, but his body was still trembling. Recalling everything that had happened so comprehensively moved Hong Yin, but it also made him relive the pain that had made his heart ache so much that he couldn't breathe. At this moment, the sharp spikes inside the Sacred Flame King armor were constantly stimulating his body. But even so, the pain in Jidong's heart did not lessen at all. Jidong's body swayed. He was in a trance, and even with his cultivation, he almost fell. Seeing his body sway, even Hong Yin herself didn't understand what was going on. She took a step forward and supported Jidong's arm. Are you all right? Hong Yin asked softly. Jidong's heart shook, and he blurted out, Flaming bar. His previously deathly, still eyes instantly became blazing hot, but when his gaze really landed on Hong Yan's face, his entire person was like a deflated balloon. Everything returned to normal. No, you're not my flaming bar, flaming bar, flaming bar. He quickly took out a bottle of wine from the vermilion bird bracelet, ignoring the fact that the surrounding hot air would quickly boil the wine. Just like that, He cut off the bottle cap and poured the wine down his throat. Only when he felt the heat from the wine did his heart feel slightly better. "Thank you for letting me see all of this. I believe you." Hong Yin let go of Ji Dong's arm, lowered her head, and said calmly. At this moment, there was no longer any hostility in her eyes, nor was there any killing intent. No matter how deeply Ji Dong had sunk into his own whirlpool of emotions, with the strength of his soul, he could still feel the change in Hong Yan's emotions when she saw the images he had released. This change was enough for him to make many decisions. "Miss Hong Yan, I originally came to the core world with two goals. One was to return to the 18th floor and see the place where I spent the longest time with the flaming bar. The other was to find a way to revive the flaming bar. After entering the core world, I found out that because the flaming bar disappeared, the Holy Church of the Flaming Bar is holding a ceremony to select a substitute leader. Afterwards, I heard that this was because the Fire Demon tribe was on the move. The Holy Church founded by the Flaming Bar must not fall into the hands of evil people. The Flaming Bar was created because of the peace of the core world. If you need any help, I will definitely do my best." Hong Yin shook her head gently and said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Ji Dong." From the images and the conversation between the Flaming Bar and Ji Dong, she naturally knew Ji Dong's name. "Could you please come with me to see our king? Just now, I have actually lied to you. I can make the decision for a small amount of earth jade, but if I want to fully support you, I will need the king's approval. Moreover, the news that you have brought is too important to our Fire Lotus tribe. I hope that you can let our king see everything that I have just seen." A bitter smile appeared on Ji Dong's face, and he said, "Do I have to show it again? All right, I'll go with you. How about this? I have a few friends who can stay in your shop temporarily, then I'll go with you." Hong Yin thought for a moment, then nodded in agreement. When Ji Dong invited the Heavenly Stem holy disciples into his shop, the others did not notice anything. But Chun Sixuan could clearly sense the change in Ji Dong's emotions. She then looked at Hong Yin, who looked 70% like her, and vaguely understood something. She could not help but ask Hyoheim about it. Chun Sixuan was not afraid that beauties like Jean and Lon Bauer would snatch Ji Dong away, because they were not as pretty as her. However, after coming to the Flaming Lotus tribe, she felt an unprecedented sense of danger. Of course, she knew how similar the members of the Flaming Lotus tribe were to her. She also knew how much Ji Dong loved the Flaming Bar. If he became impulsive because of the members of the Flaming Bar, that would be the last thing that Chun Sixuan wanted to see. Ji Dong looked at Chun Sixuan in surprise. Usually, Chun Sixuan would not ask him anything. What was wrong with her today? However, he did not hide anything. He used his soul to convey what had just happened in the shop to her and all his other partners. "I want to go with Miss Hong Yan. Everyone, wait for me here." After saying this, Ji Dong left with Hong Yan's lead. The Heavenly Stem holy disciples naturally understood what he meant. Ji Dong had a backup plan. If anything happened in the Flaming Lotus Palace, he would be able to send a message back immediately with his soul cultivation. Everyone would be able to leave in time using the teleportation formation, and it would not be too difficult for Ji Dong to escape by himself. The moment they walked out of the shop, Ji Dong put on the mask of the Sacred King armor again and concealed his aura. He purposely lagged half a step behind Hong Yan, as if he was her subordinate. Even so, when they walked on the streets, they still attracted the attention of others. Ji Dong was a little puzzled. There were not many people of other races on the streets of the Flaming Lotus Castle, but there were many members of the Flaming Lotus race. Ji Dong's gaze often swept across these beautiful women in red, but regretfully, he did not see any other women who looked more like the Flaming Bar than Hong Yan. These women from the Flaming Lotus race were the ones who paid the most attention to him. When they saw Ji Dong following behind Hong Yan, their gazes revealed some surprise. Hong Yan walked in front as if nothing had happened. It was as if she did not notice the attention of her clansmen. Naturally, Ji Dong would not ask her either. Just like that, the two of them continued forward in a strange atmosphere. The ground gradually rose. The castle was built on a mountain. Just as they were about to reach the highest peak, a city gate blocked their path. There were still 2 members of the Flaming Lotus race guarding the gate. When they saw Hong Yan, their expressions did not change at all. However, when their gazes landed on Ji Dong behind Hong Yin, their expressions could not help but change. One of the women stepped forward and blocked their path. "Sister Hong Yin, who is this person you brought?" Hong Yin stopped and glanced at her clansman. She nodded at her and said, "This is my friend. He has brought news from the Lord of the Flaming Bar. I want to see the king as soon as possible." When they heard this, the two members of the Flaming Lotus race guarding the gate were shocked. They hurriedly moved to the side and did not dare to stop them. Hong Yin led Ji Dong in just like that. Ji Dong smiled and said, "It seems like your position in the Flaming Lotus race is very high." Hong Yin turned around and glanced at Ji Dong. Then, she said plainly, "You will naturally know when you see the king." As they climbed upwards, the surrounding temperature also became higher and higher. Of course, this little bit of temperature was nothing to Ji Dong and Hong Yin. The highest peak of the Fire Lotus Castle looked extremely majestic from afar. However, when they got closer, Ji Dong realized that there was only a 2-meter-tall door at the highest peak. Looking from the outside, the overall area of this place was actually very small. It was so small that it was hard for one to believe that this was the place where the Fire Lotus King resided. Moreover, after entering the previous door of the inner castle, Ji Dong did not see any more guards. Hong Yin walked to the gate and raised her hand to gently knock on the heavy stone gate. A gentle spiritual undulation gushed out from the gate. "Come in. Why did you bring an outsider?" Hong Yin's expression did not change. She turned around and said to Hyoheim, "Please wait for a moment." When she finished speaking, she pressed her hand on the stone gate slightly. Without any sound, the crystal red stone gate quietly slid open and she walked in. Ji Dong stood outside the gate and was a little surprised. From a gentle spiritual undulation just now, he felt that the voice seemed to have come from all directions. Furthermore, it was clearly concealed. Judging by his feelings, the spiritual undulation was so weak that it could be compared to the Fire Raven King before it evolved. However, the person in front of him was not the Fire Raven King, but the Flaming Lotus King. He was also one of the 3 supreme elders of the Holy Church of Flaming Bar in the core world. Ji Dong did not attempt to use his soul to probe the room of the Flaming Lotus tribe's highest status. This was a form of respect. At the same time, he believed that it would be futile even if he tried to probe it himself. He stood there silently. When he thought about how he might have to relive the pain in his heart again, his eyes dimmed. At the same time, he was extremely nervous. He was not nervous because of the Flaming Lotus King's strength, but because this powerhouse from the core world who had once been closest to the Flaming Bar could very well be the only chance to revive the Flaming Bar. As the saying goes, the greater the hope, the greater the disappointment. His nervousness came from fear. Hong Yin had been in for a long time, but the door did not open. Due to his nervousness, Ji Dong could not help but feel a little anxious. This rarely happened after his soul cultivation reached the saint rank, especially after the death of the Flaming Bar. After an unknown period of time, just as Ji Dong's mind was filled with memories of the Flaming Bar, the door in front of him opened quietly. Hong Yan's voice came from inside. "Mr. Ji Dong, please come in." Ji Dong woke up from his memories. He took a deep breath and calmed the changes in his emotions. His expression also returned to normal. He put away the mask on his face first, then walked into the room in front of him. When he stepped into the room, it was like 2 different worlds. When Ji Dong walked into the room of the Flaming Lotus King, his first feeling was shock. This was because the layout of the room in front of him could no longer be described as simple. It was only about 20 square meters, and there were no furnishings in the room. It was empty. Hong Yin stood in front of him, looking at him. He could feel that there was another person on the ground behind Hong Yin. She was also wearing a red dress, revealing her slender edges. Hong Yin nodded her head. Her eyes were slightly red, as if she had just cried. Her body still blocked Ji Dong's line of sight. She had no intention of moving away. She only said to Hyoheim indifferently, "Mr. Ji Dong, our king needs to have a real spiritual communication with you. This matter concerns the life and death of the Flaming Lotus tribe. I hope you don't mind." Ji Dong said calmly, "Then let's begin." He didn't say anything else, nor did he reject the other party's obviously unreasonable request. Spiritual communication. If one of them was disloyal, it was very likely that they would fight to the death. Furthermore, there was Hong Yin beside him. With her cultivation, and the cultivation of the flaming Lotus King behind her, it was very likely that Ji Dong would be consigned to eternal damnation. However, Ji Dong still agreed. This was because he was completely sure that when Hong Yin saw what happened between him and the flaming bar, there was no trace of pretense in her expression. She was really touched. The people in front of him were all from the flaming bar. They were all red lotuses born in the 18th level of the Earth's core. Ji Dong believed that they all had the same pure heart as the flaming bar. His soul opened. In the next moment, Ji Dong had already opened his heart. A gentle soul fluctuation was released from his body, spreading outwards. It gave off a feeling that it was waiting to be assimilated. A gentle soul fluctuation similar to Ji Dong's rose from behind Hong Yan's back. However, it was golden in color. It turned into thousands of silk threads, bypassing Hong Yin in front of her, and quietly poured into Ji Dong's silver soul fluctuation. When the souls of both sides touched each other, a wonderful feeling was also produced in the inner world of both sides. Souls are the hardest to disguise. When Ji Dong sensed the other party's soul fluctuation, the first thing he felt was that it was extremely pure. It was pure without any impurities. This soul seemed to have come from an otherworldly fairy. There were no emotions at all. Even when he was in the flaming bar in Chun Sichuan, Ji Dong had never sensed such a soul. However, when this pure golden soul came into contact with Ji Dong's silver soul fluctuation, it trembled slightly. Ji Dong clearly felt that this soul was more solid than his own soul. However, when they really came into contact, he realized that this soul seemed to be afraid of him. If it was said that what Ji Dong felt was a soul that was as white as a piece of paper without any emotions, then what the owner of the golden soul felt was like an erupting volcano. The unparalleled emotions in Ji Dong's soul burst forth, and the huge emotional fluctuation seemed to melt her in an instant. That came from Ji Dong's love for the flaming bar. Everything in the soul gradually became clear, and the other party's appearance gradually appeared in Ji Dong's mind. At this moment, Hong Yan's body turned slightly, and the figure behind him was revealed. In the next moment, Ji Dong's soul exploded like a hurricane in the sea. It set off monstrous waves, like a huge mouth, and swept towards the golden soul. He even shouted at the top of his lungs, "Lie! Flame!" Chapter 536. Lie! Blaze! With a shout, Ji Dong's soul had already boiled to its peak. The other party's golden soul clearly did not expect Ji Dong to suddenly explode and was instantly caught off guard. The golden soul instantly shrunk, turning into a layer of light that enveloped the graceful and delicate body. Just as the owner of the golden soul was enraged and was about to launch a counterattack, she was stunned. This was because she suddenly realized that not only did Ji Dong's overwhelming silver soul not have any evil intentions, but it also unhesitatingly activated all its defenses. It could be said that it had completely fused with her. At this moment, if she wanted to kill Ji Dong and destroy his soul, it could be said to be as easy as lifting a finger. Even though the strength of Ji Dong's soul was Saint tier, it was no exception. Ji Dong's heart was in a mess, and he seemed to have gone mad. It was not only his soul that moved, but his entire body also suddenly pounced forward at the same time. His powerful soul exploded with all the skills that could increase his body's speed. When he stepped on the ground and pounced forward like an arrow, his tyrannical physical strength even caused the incomparably sturdy castle to tremble slightly. The yin-yang flame sword formation was accompanied by the full explosion of the flying serpent flash. Its speed was already comparable to instant transmission, so fast that Hong Yin, who had just retreated to the side, could not stop it at all. The owner of the golden soul was still shocked by Ji Dong's sudden opening of his heart and was somewhat at a loss. In the next moment, her body had already been buried in a scorching and soul-shaking embrace. Her control of fire, even in the core world, was ranked in the top 3. Ever since the day she had consciousness, she had never felt anything like scorching heat. Even a magma in the 18th level of the core could not give her such a feeling. However, right now, she felt an indescribable heat that instantly enveloped her body and soul. This unprecedented heat almost caused her to lose control of her soul. Are you crazy? Hong Yin had already reacted in an instant. Her figure had already flashed behind Ji Dong, and her hands had already grabbed onto Ji Dong's shoulders, wanting to pull him away. However, she was shocked to find that this man in front of her was as firm as a rock, and there was an extremely crazy undulation of love exploding in his soul. Her pull actually did not have the slightest effect. Sister, he definitely did not do it on purpose. Don't kill him. Hong Yin called out anxiously. A faint voice rang out from within Ji Dong's almost crazy embrace. It was actually a human voice. Let me go. I'm not the lord of the flaming bar that you think I am. Ji Dong's heart trembled, but he forcefully tightened his arms, feeling the warm and supple body in his embrace. No matter what was said, he refused to let go. No, I won't let go. Even until the end of time, I will not let go. Flaming bar, I will not let you leave me again, definitely not. Yes, in the instant that Hong Yin had moved away, the person that Ji Dong had seen was the person that he had been yearning for. It was the flaming bar, her perfect flaming bar. How could his emotions calm down after seeing the flaming bar? Like a volcano erupting, he rushed over without a care and used his soul and body to tightly hug her, afraid that she would leave him again. I really am not the flaming bar. The same voice rang out from the depths of Ji Dong's soul this time. The ice-cold aura was like a basin of ice water that was poured over Ji Dong's soul. At this moment, as Ji Dong's silver soul was completely unguarded, it had completely fused with the golden soul. The golden soul's actions immediately caused his mind to tremble, and his body also relaxed a little. In the next moment, a gentle yet extremely firm force suddenly exploded from his embrace. Ji Dong's body had already been pushed back to the spot where he had entered the door. The figure that had been sitting cross-legged on the ground previously quietly stood up and stood quietly in front of him. Ji Dong stood there in a daze. His face was as white as a sheet, and he muttered to himself, "You're not my flaming bar. My flaming bar would not treat me like this, and would not use such ice-cold soul undulations to provoke me. You really are not my flaming bar." Hearing Ji Dong's voice, Hong Yin felt an inexplicable pain in her heart. Her expression changed several times, and she opened her mouth as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she could not say anything. The person who was facing Ji Dong, and whose body was emitting golden soul undulations, was a woman in red. Her long red dress covered every part of her skin, except for the area above her neck and her hands. She looked to be about 18 or 19 years old, and had a head of fiery red hair that flowed down her back, just past her buttocks. She had an exquisite and flawless face that even the best sculptor would not be able to portray. Her perfect body proportions were in accordance with the golden ratio, and there was not a single flaw to be found. Her pink eyes were incomparably clear, and she looked exactly like the flaming bar. No, she was not the flaming bar. When Ji Dong's gaze landed on the girl's eyes, his heart trembled. He had finally found the difference between her and the flaming bar. Although the flaming bar had red hair and a red dress, her eyes were black. On the other hand, although the girl in front of him was as perfect as the flaming bar, her eyes were pink. How could Ji Dong distinguish such a subtle difference when both of them were emitting soul undulations? He really thought that it was a gift from the heavens, that the flaming bar had been returned to him. In this room that was only about 20 square meters wide, the atmosphere had already become a little strange. Ji Dong stood there in a daze, as if he was suffering from a serious illness. His body swayed unsteadily, and his saint-rank physique was actually of no help to him at all. Hong Yin looked at Ji Dong with a strange gaze, and there was even a hint of peculiarity in her eyes. Everything that Ji Dong had done previously was simply unimaginable to her. Her elder sister had never been hugged like this before, let alone being hugged by other creatures. However, Her elder sister had been hugged so fiercely by him just now, and the strange thing was that her elder sister did not do anything to him. Otherwise, even if there were 10 of him, he would probably be dead. Elder sister, what's wrong with you? The girl who stood in front of Ji Dong, who was 99% similar to the flaming bar, looked at Ji Dong in a daze. When she shook off Ji Dong's body, she was suddenly surprised to find that after leaving that scorching heat, she actually felt a strong sense of loss in her heart. This was unimaginable to her. In the core world, she was known to be untainted by dust, and there had never been any emotional ripples or fluctuations in her heart. However, this tranquility seemed to have been broken now. Hong Yin said that you're the lover of the Lord Flaming Bar in the human world. Did the Lord Flaming Bar die because of you? The pink-eyed girl's voice was just as pleasant to the ears. Just like her appearance, her voice was 99% similar to the Flaming Bar's. Ji Dong's heart trembled. He looked at her and said in a daze, "Who said that my Flaming Bar died? She didn't die. She definitely didn't die, and is waiting for me somewhere." The pink-eyed girl, the Fire Lotus King, slowly closed her pink eyes. At this moment, she looked even more like the Flaming Bar. "Let me feel your memories." Apart from Chen Xishuan, this was the second time Ji Dong's soul had fused with his soul. However, Ji Dong did not feel good about it. The tacit understanding he had when his soul fused with Chen Xishuan did not appear in this girl who was so similar to the Flaming Bar. Moreover, his soul was completely open this time. She was so similar to the Flaming Bar. However, at this moment, when Ji Dong's heart gradually calmed down, he could already see the obvious difference between her and the Flaming Bar. Not only did the stiff soul fusion not allow him to feel the Flaming Bar's aura, it even repelled him. The feeling of not knowing each other was uncomfortable. Reality was always cruel. The thing that Ji Dong was most afraid of still happened. His heart, full of expectations, turned into disappointment. Even though he had not asked the Fire Lotus King in front of him if she could help him revive the Flaming Bar, he had already suffered another heart-wrenching pain. Sighing in his heart, Ji Dong unfolded the memories in his soul and did not hold back at all for the Fire Lotus King to feel for herself. Doing this was much better than recalling the pain he had experienced in the past. Moreover, because the Fire Lotus King had directly entered his soul world to feel, it was much more direct than when Hong Yin had watched the scenes that Ji Dong had released. The Fire Lotus King settled down to feel for Ji Dong's soul. She was shocked at the strength of Ji Dong's soul. Even compared to her, the strength of this young human soul was not much weaker. She could clearly sense Ji Dong's age from his life force. To the Fire Lotus King, he already possessed such powerful soul power at such a young age. To the Fire Lotus King, it was completely unbelievable that he already possessed such powerful soul power. Moreover, this young man's mana and soul power were not equal. A Saint Tier soul matched with mana that was rather far from the Saint Tier. In fact, any member of the Fire Lotus tribe would have stronger mana than him. However, the Fire Lotus King immediately realized that Ji Dong's mana was the same as the Flaming Bar's and the Fire Lotus tribes. They were both ultimate dual fires. Just this point alone made her believe in Ji Dong. What she felt next was Ji Dong's memories. As her memories were completely open, the Fire Lotus King's senses started from the moment Ji Dong and the Flaming Bar got to know each other. This was a lot more detailed than what Hong Yin had seen previously. Everything that Ji Dong and the Flaming Bar had experienced was gradually transmitted into her memories through the soul connection. Ji Dong just stood there quietly with his heart open. His entire mind was in a blank state. He didn't know what he was thinking. The similarity between the Fire Lotus King and the Flaming Bar caused his longing for the Flaming Bar to rise to the peak. Just like when the Flaming Bar had just passed away, he had hoped so much that the lady in front of him was the Flaming Bar. Unfortunately, she wasn't. She really wasn't. No matter how much she resembled the Flaming Bar, she wasn't his Flaming Bar. As time passed, Hong Yin, who was standing at the side, looked at Ji Dong and then at the Fire Lotus King. Her expression wasn't calm. After experiencing the love between the Flaming Bar and Ji Dong, she had a very good impression of this young man in front of her. She would probably never forget the moment when the flaming bar was on the brink of death. Ji-dong had crazily peeled his soul from his body, wanting to give his body to the flaming bar. Was this love? The power of love was actually so strong. Very soon, Hong Yin realized that there was a subtle change in her sister's expression. In her memory, her sister was always so calm, no matter what happened. However, the emotions on her sister's face were becoming more and more obvious. Finally, Hong Yin saw tears. Faint red crystal tears flowed down the corners of the Fire Lotus King's eyes. She didn't wipe them away, but her body was trembling slightly. Hong Yin sighed to herself. Sister, it seems like you're the same as me. You were also touched by the story between him and Lady Flaming Bar. I don't know if Lady Flaming Bar's choice was right or wrong, but if it was me, perhaps I would have made the same choice. Do you still remember? Lady Flaming Bar once told us that if we want to reach her level, then we must go to the human world and experience the various emotional entanglements between humans. Lady Flaming Bar did it. She understood the meaning of love, the most mysterious of human emotions. Hence, she evolved again. However, she also trapped herself in it. This was the first time in her life that Hong Yin felt that time was passing so slowly. This kind of waiting wasn't comfortable. The golden color gradually faded from Ji-dong's body. When it came, it was cold and calm. However, when it faded, it was like the magic possessed by her master. It was filled with blazing emotional fluctuations. A faint mist rose from the Fire Lotus King's face and dissipated in the air. Ji-dong slightly lowered his head and closed his eyes. He didn't look at the Fire Lotus King anymore. This was because he didn't dare to look at this woman who was too similar to the Flaming Bar. Looking at her would immediately evoke an intense longing for the Flaming Bar. I know. The emotions in the Fire Lotus King's eyes gradually calmed down. At least on the surface, that was the case. Her voice was also much gentler than before. If the other races of the Earth's core knew that the Fire Lotus King, one of the three dignified Supreme Elders, would still speak to a human in such a gentle manner, they would probably jump into the magma mode in shock. Thank you for bringing back the news of Lady Flaming Bar's death. Thank you for letting me see all of this. As she spoke, the Fire Lotus King actually bowed slightly towards Ji-dong. Although Ji-dong didn't use his eyes to look at her, he could feel what she was doing through his soul. He hurriedly moved to the side and didn't accept her bow. Taking a deep breath, Ji-dong's voice was clearly a little nervous. He said, I only want to know, can you revive the Flaming Bar? Chapter 537. I only want to know, can you revive the Flaming Bar? Ji-dong asked the question that he was most concerned about. The Fire Lotus King's voice faltered, but she shook her head in the end and said, I also hope that the Flaming Bar can be revived. However, she is a god, and the life of a god is not something that we can control. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Ji-dong suddenly opened his eyes and looked at the Fire Lotus King. Why not? I have the seed of the red lotus that the Flaming Bar left for me. Can't this seed extend your life? The Fire Lotus King shook her head gently and said, No, the natal lotus seed that the Flaming Bar left for you is already a body of energy. It is attached to a trace of her consciousness before she left. There is not even a trace of consciousness. This kind of natal lotus seed cannot grow again. Furthermore, even if it can grow again, it will be thousands of years later when she comes back to life. Furthermore, she will have a new soul by then, and will no longer be the Flaming Bar in your heart. Ji-dong spat out a mouthful of blood, or rather his heart's blood. He covered his heart with his hand and slowly collapsed. Hong Yan's figure flashed and appeared next to Ji-dong to support him. However, in the next moment, she realized that Ji-dong's body was already floating in midair. The Fire Lotus King raised her right hand and controlled the fire elements in the air to prevent Ji-dong from falling. She said to the Red Lotus in a low voice, Prepare all the jade of the earth that we have. Hong Yan's delicate body trembled slightly and said, Sister, are you really going to give them all to him? The Fire Lotus King revealed a bitter smile and said, Since the Flaming Bar has given herself to her, what else can we not give? Go, I'll take care of him. All the geocentric creatures that have interacted with humans say that humans are cunning but humans have emotions that we don't have. Hong Yin let go of Ji Dong and let the Fire Lotus King pull his body in front of her. Just as she was about to step out of the door, she suddenly turned around and asked the Fire Lotus King, "Sister, do you think it's worth it for the Flaming Bar to do this?" The Fire Lotus King shook his head and said blankly, "I don't know. I really don't know." "Then, let me tell you, it's worth it. Even if I have to do it 1,000 times, 10,000 times, I will still make the same choice." A sudden voice caused Hong Yin and Fire Lotus King's hearts to tremble at the same time. They couldn't imagine that someone could come here without anyone knowing. Even the Fire Devil King and Fire Spirit King couldn't do it. Who? Hong Yan's body instantly burned with a dazzling red light. Her previously gentle gaze instantly became fierce. The door opened, and a graceful figure appeared in front of Hong Yan. Her voice was still as gentle as before. "Little Yin, did you listen to your sister obediently?" Hearing this, Hong Yan's eyes instantly widened. The murderous intent on her body naturally disappeared. Her body trembled violently as she looked at the person who came. That graceful figure walked past Hong Yin and into the room. A perfect face with a dense life aura appeared in front of the Fire Lotus King. She was also perfect. Her perfection was like a lotus in an empty valley. Facing the Fire Lotus King, it could be said that they each had their own advantages. "You are?" The Fire Lotus King also heard what she said and looked at the lady in front of him hesitantly. "I'm called Chun Sichuan now." Yes, the person who suddenly came and walked into this room after Ji Dong fainted was the Heavenly Stem's Imu holy disciple, Chun Sichuan. Chun Sichuan raised her right hand and pressed it on her forehead. A red glow spread out and instantly connected to the Fire Lotus King and Hong Yan. "Lady Flaming Bar, is it really you?" The Fire Lotus King was shocked. In the next moment, she had already knelt down in front of Chun Sichuan. Anything could be fake, but the consciousness of the Queen of the Flaming Bar could not be faked. Even though her consciousness was currently very weak, it was still consciousness. Chun Sichuan stepped forward and helped the Fire Lotus King up. She smiled and said, "Silly girl, I am no longer the Flaming Bar of the past. Don't bow to me like this. You should be able to feel that with my current strength, it would be very difficult for me to defeat an ordinary member of the Fire Lotus race." At this moment, Hong Yin had already tightly shut the door, afraid that even the slightest sound would leak out. She took a step out and arrived at Chun Sichuan's side. Her eyes were already red as she fiercely hugged Chun Sichuan's arm and said, "Big sister, you're finally back. Do you know how much we missed you? The fire demon race has already started to bully us when you weren't around. Big sister." At this point, Hong Yin was already sobbing uncontrollably. Chun Sichuan gently stroked Hong Yan's long hair and sighed. "It's not that I don't want to come back, but that I no longer have the ability to. I am no longer the queen of the Flaming Bar of the core world. I am only a human, a woman with human emotions and a human body. My god-level power has already disappeared. However, just like I said earlier, I do not regret it. If I could really be with Ji Dong, it would be worth it no matter how much I have to sacrifice. It's a pity." At this point, a deep sorrow appeared in her eyes. Hong Yin asked anxiously, "What's wrong? Big sister, did he bully you? I will help you vent your anger." Chun Sichuan shook her head. "How could he bully me? I love him more than anything." As she spoke, she walked up to Ji Dong, who was floating in the air, and gently pulled him into her embrace. Her movements were careful and gentle, as if she was afraid of hurting Ji Dong. The Fire Lotus King and Hong Yin stood on either side of Chun Sichuan. The Fire Lotus King asked, "Sister, what exactly happened? How did you become like this?" Chun Sichuan sighed. Since she was already here, she didn't want to hide anything. Since she was able to come here with her current body and identity, it proved that she had absolute trust in these two sisters. Earlier, when Ji Dong came out of the shop, she had already seen Hong Yin. Her heart calmed down a lot, but she was too clear about how similar she was to the Fire Lotus King. From a selfish point of view, she was really afraid that Ji Dong would mistake the Fire Lotus King for her. If that was really the case, then it would be a great tragedy. Therefore, she quietly came here. Using the concealment of her divine sense, she quietly entered the castle from a place that only a few of them knew about. Her divine sense wouldn't be discovered. She had heard everything that Ji Dong had said. She was glad that Ji Dong didn't mistake her for someone else, but she was also extremely distressed because of Ji Dong's pain. Starting from the moment her divine sense collapsed, Qin Sixuan briefly explained her deal with the evil god. Hong Yin and the Fire Lotus King listened and looked at each other in dismay. The two women felt that it was a little inconceivable. Hong Yin couldn't help but say, "Big sister, isn't this a very easy matter? Even if you force him, you can still make him say those 3 words to you." Qin Sixuan smiled bitterly. If only it was that easy. You don't understand him. Ji Dong's temper is extremely stubborn, and he also deeply loves the previous me. After I was reborn, I have been with him for more than 2 years. I have tried everything, even giving myself to him, but I still couldn't make him change. To be honest, I am really in pain and happy at the same time. I am happy that he didn't betray our previous feelings, but I am also in pain because I can't truly be with him. When I first agreed to the evil god, I also thought that it was a very simple matter. But now I understand how sinister this evil god is. Hong Yin blankly said, "Then what should we do?" Qin Sixuan sighed. "Let's take one step at a time. Right now, I only hope that one day he will say those 3 words perfunctorily to me. It's fine. I have no other way now." The Fire Lotus King said, "Big sister, then what should we do with him now?" Qin Sixuan said, "I can't come out for too long. I have to go back now. I came here to tell you that I am still alive, but I can't help you anymore. I no longer belong to the core world. Also, I want you to fully support Ji Dong and the people who came this time. Isn't the acting church master selection ceremony going to be held soon? Ji Dong will definitely participate. You have to support him from the side. If he can successfully become the acting church master, it will definitely be a great thing for the core world. As for the fire demon race, you don't have to worry too much. As long as Ji Dong becomes the acting church master, they will definitely be in harmony." The Fire Lotus King was puzzled. "Big sister, I'm afraid that Ji Dong's strength isn't enough to become a champion. Although his soul power is very strong, his demonic power." Qin Sixuan smiled and shook her head. "You don't have to worry about that. I have confidence in him." The Fire Lotus King frowned and said, "What I am most worried about now is that even if Ji Dong can defeat the experts of the various races and become the final champion, the Fire Demon King will cause trouble. The Fire Demon King has been extremely strong recently. In terms of cultivation, he has already surpassed me and the Fire Spirit King." Qin Sixuan smiled mysteriously. "Don't worry, he won't do anything to Ji Dong." Then, she whispered something into the Fire Lotus King's ear. The Fire Lotus King was startled at first, then his eyes were filled with shock. Qin Sixuan carefully placed Ji Dong on the ground and opened her arms to hug Hong Yin and the Fire Lotus King. She said, "From now on, the core world and the Fire Lotus race will have to rely on you. I'm no longer the ruler of the core world. The flaming bar is dead. Now, there's only Qin Sixuan." Qin Sixuan sighed with tears in her eyes. She squatted down and kissed Ji Dong's face before drifting away. The Fire Lotus King and Hong Yin didn't stop her because they understood the flaming bar too well. The flaming bar's decision would never change. Furthermore, she doesn't belong to the core world anymore. Once her identity is exposed, it will be a huge problem. At least the Lord Flaming Bar is still alive. Hong Yin hugged the Fire Lotus King's arm and leaned on her shoulder. The Fire Lotus King nodded lightly. After an unknown amount of time, Ji Dong slowly woke up from his coma. His heart was still aching. His consciousness was clear, but he didn't want to wake up just like that. "If you're awake, then open your eyes." The Fire Lotus King's faint voice rang in Ji Dong's ears. Ji Dong let out a long breath and slowly sat up. His body didn't suffer any injuries. The mouthful of blood that he spat out was just a knot in his heart. His saint body had already healed itself. Hong Yin was no longer there. He was still in the Fire Lotus King's small cultivation room. In this small space, only he and the Fire Lotus King were left. Looking at the Fire Lotus King's face that was 99% similar to the flaming bars, Ji-dong's heart couldn't help but ache again. Brother-in-law, don't be like this. Otherwise, Big Sister's soul in heaven won't be at peace. The Fire Lotus King's words made Ji-dong struggle out of his pain. He looked at her blankly and said, What did you call me? I call you brother-in-law. That's how I should call you. The Fire Lotus King smiled and said, My name is Lai Yin. Back then, when we were still in the 18th layer of the Earth's core, Hong Yin and I were a pair of twin lotuses. At the same time, we are also Big Sister's twin lotuses. We were born with the help of Big Sister's trunk. Therefore, Hong Yin and I have the same flame as Big Sister. Although we are not as strong as Big Sister and are only her subordinates, Big Sister has always recognized us as her younger sisters. I didn't call you brother-in-law wrongly. Brother-in-law. These two simple words filled Ji-dong's heart with warmth. When he looked at Lai Yin again, the pain in his heart had obviously lessened. No wonder they looked so similar. They were Flaming Bar's younger sisters. That means they are my younger sisters. Ji-dong stood up and maintained a certain distance from Lai Yin. He said, I'm sorry, Lai Yin. Please forgive me for my rudeness earlier. Earlier, he had fiercely hugged her. He still remembered it clearly. It was not easy to forget a beauty of this level. Moreover, her aura was so similar to that of Flaming Bar. The Fire Lotus King, Lai Yin, blushed slightly. She shook her head and said, It's nothing. I know that brother-in-law thought I was Big Sister. That's why you did that. I don't blame you. Ji-dong let out a sigh of relief and said, That's good. Lai Yin, I didn't protect your sister well. At this point, Ji-dong's eyes became a little red. Lai Yin gently shook his head and said, No, you've already done very well. You've given me a new understanding of humans. Hong Yin and I both believe that it's not a loss for Big Sister to become your lover, even if she's no longer here. Actually, Big Sister is a god. Even if she's already dead, her consciousness will still be watching you. Perhaps she'll even be by your side. Cherish what you have now. Lai Yin naturally couldn't tell him that Chen Sichuan was Flaming Bar. He could only indirectly remind him. However, how could she know that Ji-dong's love for Flaming Bar had already reached a demonic level? After hearing her words, his thoughts were completely different. Lai Yin saw that Ji-dong's expression was strange. He couldn't bear to provoke him any further. He continued, Let's get back to the main topic. Brother-in-law, are you here to inherit Big Sister's position? Chapter 538. Ji-dong nodded without hesitation. That's right. The Flaming Bar Holy Church's prestige is related to the safety of the entire core world. I'm here at the right time, so I naturally have to participate and do my part to maintain peace in the core world. It would be best if I could obtain the position of acting leader. Lai Yin, if I'm not wrong, you should be a martial sage. Then, the Fire Spirit King and the Fire Demon King should also be martial sage, right? Lai Yin nodded towards Ji-dong. Yes, the Fire Spirit King and I are both mid-saint rank, but the Fire Demon King has already broken through to high saint rank. He's a bit stronger than us. Back then, when the core was still ruled by two sovereigns, they didn't allow any saint rank powerhouses to appear, relying on their peak saint rank strength. Once they discovered someone breaking through to the saint rank, they would immediately destroy them. That's why there are so many powerhouses in the core, but so few saint rank powerhouses. It wasn't until Sister killed them and unified the core that the situation improved. 3 saint rank powerhouses appeared one after the other, and gradually rose to this level. Ji-dong said, So other than the 3 of you, there are no other martial sages in the core world, right? Lai Yin nodded. There are many who are close to martial sages, but none of them have actually broken through to martial sage. Ji-dong heaved a sigh of relief. As long as I'm not facing a martial sage, I think I'll have a chance. Please tell me the details of the selection. Lai Yin said, Logically speaking, all the races in the core world will participate in this year's ceremony, but there shouldn't be more than 40 people who will actually participate in the competition. Only the 36 core elders and the representatives from our 3 races will participate in the competition. After all, even if the other races participate, they won't have any chance, and there won't be any restrictions in this kind of competition. If they go all out, it will basically be a life and death battle. So, they will give up at the beginning of the competition to avoid threatening their lives. Jidong said, "What about the format of the competition? Which member of our Fire Lotus race will be participating?" Lai Yin said, "The format of the competition is very simple. Draw lots, compete, and the winner will enter the next round until the final champion is decided. That will be the acting leader. Our core world doesn't have that many complicated rules. As long as you can persevere to the end, then you've succeeded. As for our Fire Lotus Race's contestant, you've already met her. She's Hong Yen." Jidong was moved and said, "Thank you for telling me all this. Can you arrange a place for me and my companions to stay? This time, I am representing the Fire Puppet King. We are all here in the name of the Fire Puppet Race. In 3 days, we will directly participate in the competition." Lai Yin nodded and said, "No problem." With the Fire Lotus King arranging a place for them, Jidong and the rest naturally had no problems. However, it was impossible to live comfortably in the core world. This could be clearly seen from the living conditions of the Fire Lotus King. Fortunately, the place that the Fire Lotus King arranged for them was rather spacious. The stronger the creature in the core world, the less they needed to eat. They only needed to absorb the rich fire element in the air. Therefore, they could only think of their own ways to eat and drink. With the help of the 5-element cycle formation, it was not a problem for the 2 water demon masters to create water. As for food, Jidong had already made sufficient preparations before coming. Although the dry food did not taste very good, it was enough to fill their stomachs. With everyone's cultivation, they were not that reliant on food. "Tianji, can you still hold on?" Jidong looked at Yun Tianji with concern. Yun Tianji nodded slightly. With his body, he naturally could not live in such a high temperature. He had completely relied on the holy flame armor made from the demonic smoke pufferfish and the help of everyone else to come here. "Don't worry, I'm fine. I won't fight." "Jidong, how do you plan to participate in the competition?" Jidong said, "I've already thought about it. In order to enter the finals, I have to reduce the chances of getting injured as much as possible and consume as much energy. Although the fire element here is rich, there are also many strong people. They're not easy to deal with. Therefore, this time, I will not be the only one participating. Senior brother, Ajin, you two will also participate with me. We all have tokens, so we can't care about exposing our identities. Every time you defeat an opponent, it will be easier for me to fight later." Fury and Ajin nodded and said, "No problem." Fury smiled and said, "Junior brother, maybe we can even meet in the finals." Ajin glanced at him and said, "Fury, what makes you so confident?" Fury could not help but feel defeated when he saw Ajin. He said helplessly, "Maybe you will meet Jidong first. Naturally, I will be the last to meet him in the finals." "I want to participate too," Yao Qinshu said impatiently. "Jidong, don't look down on me. My cultivation is not weak. At least I am confident that I can make it through 1 round." Jidong shook his head and said, "You can't. Don't forget your element." Yao Qinshu was stunned for a moment before he reacted. He smiled and said, "Looks like Sichuan knows you better. She didn't even mention to participate in the competition. Why am I so stupid?" He was the ultimate first wood element. Helping Jidong recover his mana outside of the competition was far more useful than helping him on the stage. Chen Sichuan clearly knew this, which was why she did not mention it. Otherwise, with her armor of eternity, she would only be stronger than Yao Qinshu. Lang Tianyi and Misty Miao looked at each other. Lang Tianyi and Hao Miao exchanged glances. Just as they were about to say something, Jidong raised his hand to stop them. "You two are strong enough to participate in the competition, especially Hao Miao. With the staff of the Goddess of Earth, you'll definitely be able to handle the first round. However, this is the core. Even if we've obtained the support of the Fire Lotus King, nothing is absolute. Therefore, I want you two to stay behind and prepare to provide support with the others. You must always remember that we're here to train, not to put our lives on the line. Understand?" Only then did Lang Tianyi and Misty Miao give up on the idea. As for Lan Bauer, Du Ming, and Du Xener, they naturally would not interrupt. They knew that they were not strong enough to share the burden for Jidong in a big battle like this. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. The 15th level of the core world had become extremely lively. Today was the selection ceremony for the acting leader of the Holy Church of the Flaming Bar. This was the first time such a ceremony had been held in the core world. Since the establishment of the Holy Church of the Flaming Bar, this could be said to be the grandest and most important ceremony. The place where the ceremony was held was at the entrance of the 15th level. The three powerful races had already arrived here long ago. They each occupied the edges of the entrances in the direction of their castles, making it seem like they had split the world into three. At the corner of the circular entrance were the representatives of the other races who had come to participate in the ceremony and to participate in the competition. They were basically the leaders of the various races. Jidong and the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples were among these people. After a brief observation, they discovered that apart from them, the majority of the other 200 people were of the same race. It was obvious that snatching the token to participate in the ceremony was extremely common in the core world. Of course, there were two races that did not appear among these people. One was naturally the Fire Owl race, whose elites had been wiped out, and the other was the Fire Golem race that Jidong and the others had disguised themselves as. The evilness of the Fire Golem race was far greater than that of the Fire Owl race. Their greatest characteristic was that they would consume the body essences of other races to increase their own cultivation base. Once they succeeded, no matter what race the other party was, they would quickly be sucked dry and die. They were one of the most loathsome races in the core world. Jidong naturally wouldn't show any mercy to such a race. Right now, the 11 of them were here. The other races in the surroundings were either looking at them with intense hostility or avoiding them. Many of the creatures in the core world were muttering to themselves. When did the Fire Golem race become so powerful? There were actually 11 of them participating in the ceremony this time. Jidong naturally did not care about what others thought of him. He only silently observed the few races that were especially numerous in this group. Clearly, these were the most powerful existences in the core world apart from the three powerful races. Apart from the Fire Owl King, the other 35 core elders should have arrived. As it turned out, the ceremony in the core world was much simpler than in the human world. Just as Jidong was thinking, powerful pulses of mana appeared in the sky. All the people participating in the ceremony were naturally attracted by the sudden pressure. The members of the three races that had already gathered around the entrance to the 15th floor began to cry out at the same time. They called out in a language that Jidong did not understand. Amongst the three great clans, the most eye-catching one was naturally the Fire Lotus tribe. All of them were beauties, and there were approximately 400 of them. Just the sight of them was enough to make the scalps of the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples turn numb. After all, there were more than 400 Supreme Being experts. If they were in the outside world, it would not be a problem for them to sweep through the entire continent. Furthermore, the Fire Lotus tribe was not the strongest amongst the three great clans. The Fire Demon tribe was basically the same as the Dark Flame Lord and the Fire Lord that Jidong had summoned. It was just their size and the pulses of fire they gave off. They were the most numerous as well, over 2,000 of them. Moreover, all of them were Class 9 magical beasts or above. Compared to them, the Fire Lotus tribe paled in comparison. As for the fire spirits, they seemed even stranger. They were like balls of willow, wisps that hovered in the air, appearing extremely special to the side of the entrance to the 15th floor. Some of the flames were large, while others were small. Some were dark red, while others were golden red. Clearly, they belonged to the fire attribute of yin and yang. There were around 1,000 of them in total. Although they did not seem as powerful as the fire demons, they all possessed extremely powerful pulses of soul. Even though the clansmen of the Fire Lotus tribe were actually condensed from fire-attributed energy, they were still very different from their bodies that were completely condensed from souls. As the pressure in the sky increased, the patriarchs of the various clans around Jidong all kept quiet out of fear. The previously noisy scene immediately quieted down, and everyone's gazes were focused on the sky. The next moment, 3 light gates appeared in the sky out of nowhere. Each light gate was different. The light gate corresponding to the fire spirit race's side was round, and there were some distorted light fluctuations around it, just like when the sun was releasing its light. The light gate corresponding to the fire demon race's side was extremely tall and magnificent. There weren't many decorations on it, but it was filled with a domineering aura. The Fire Lotus tribe's gate was the exact opposite of the fire demons. The surroundings of the gate were decorated with lotus petals. It was the most dazzling out of the 3 gates of light. In the next moment, 3 figures basically walked out of the 3 gates of light at the same time, appearing out of nowhere in the sky. The clansmen of the 3 powerful clans knelt on the ground at the same time and loudly greeted their patriarchs. The various powerhouses around Jidong also knelt on one knee and released their spiritual aura to greet the exalted Grand Elder. Although he was unwilling, Jidong still knelt down with the heavenly stem saints for the sake of the grand plan. It was just that their knees did not touch the ground. After kneeling on one knee, Jidong raised his head to look at the sky. Without a doubt, the one who walked out of the Lotus Gate was the patriarch of the Fire Lotus tribe, one of the red lotuses that accompanied the flaming bar, the Fire Lotus King Lai Yin. The other 2 were the main targets of Jidong's observation. The one who walked out of the circular gate of light was actually a humanoid elder. His body looked more illusory than Lai Yin's. He had white hair and a white beard, which made him look like a fluttering immortal, condensing his soul into a humanoid form. What a powerful spiritual power. Jidong had only sensed the spiritual undulations from the elder on the earth dragon ancestor. As for the darkness Tianji that he had seen before, he had not been able to clearly sense the spiritual undulations from the darkness Tianji because the difference between them was too great. Furthermore, he had also been affected by the massive pressure from the myriad lightning calamity realm. On the other side, Jidong also saw a humanoid figure, but it was a strange one. Compared to the Flaming Bar and the Fire Spirit King, the Fire Demon King was much larger. He was over 12 meters tall and looked extremely majestic. However, there were flames of different colors burning on both sides of his body. The left side was black while the right side was gold. What shocked Jidong even more was that the Fire Demon King actually gave him an extremely intimate and familiar feeling. Furthermore, their mana attributes were exactly the same. Jidong stared blankly at the Fire Demon King. He could not figure out what was going on. Why did I feel a sense of intimacy from the Fire Demon King? Just as Jidong was in a daze, the 3 light gates in the sky had already disappeared. The 3 Grand Supreme Elders stood side by side. Although they had different figures, they were all emitting an immense pressure. Chapter 539. The huge mana wave was terrifying to the core world. It was not the first time that Jidong had seen 3 people appearing at the same time. Back then, during the calamity of the Holy Evil Island, Dark Fate also used the dark ritual to bring the 4 holy pigs over and devoured them all. However, in terms of strength, the 4 holy pigs obviously couldn't compare to the 3 saint-rank powerhouses in front of him. Another thing that shocked Jidong was that the 3 supreme elders of the Flaming Bar in the core world actually cultivated yin, yang, and fire at the same time. They seemed to be verifying what the Flaming Bar said back then, that only dual attribute cultivation was orthodox. I haven't seen you for a long time. There are only over 70 races that can really participate in this ceremony today. An old voice echoed in the vast space. It was the Fire Spirit King. The most senior king spoke first. Even the powerful Fire Spirit King didn't intend to stop him. Hearing the Fire Spirit King's words, the kings around Jidong and the others couldn't help but lower their heads and didn't dare to look at the Fire Spirit King. Obviously, the Fire Spirit King was very dissatisfied with their action of snatching the token of other races. Fortunately, the Fire Spirit King's gaze just swept past them and continued. Our great founder, Her Majesty the Flaming Bar Empress, has not appeared for a long time or given us any instructions for some reason. Since the establishment of the Flaming Bar, all the races in the core world have been living in harmony with each other. There are no more wars in the past. It can be said that Her Majesty the Flaming Bar Empress has turned our core world into a pure land. If we want the core world to continue to be stable, The rules set by Her Majesty the Empress can't be changed. The Corps cannot be without a leader for a day. We don't have any news about Her Majesty the Empress, but we still need a unified leader. Therefore, after the three of us discussed, we decided to hold this ceremony and select a person who is strong in all aspects to temporarily take over the position of the leader. Although it's just an acting leader, no matter which race it will be a permanent honor for that race. Therefore, I hope that everyone can actively participate in the selection ceremony later. The Fire Spirit King's soul wave was too strong. Although his cultivation was only at the middle level of the Sage stage, his soul power was definitely at the high level of the Sage stage. It was even close to the peak level of the Sage stage. What a terrifying soul wave. Jidong knew that unless he and Chun Sichuan carried out soul fusion, they would definitely be suppressed by the Fire Spirit King in terms of soul level. Even if they completed the soul fusion, they might not be able to defeat the Fire Spirit King. Yes, the representatives of each race immediately responded. Even the clansmen of the three major races did the same. At this moment, the Fire Spirit King waved his hand and said, "Then let's begin. The three of us will not participate in this election. Participants can come out and draw lots now." Simple and direct. This could be considered the exclusive style of the core world. At least on the surface, the current Fire Spirit King didn't seem to be abnormal. Among the three Supreme Elders, only the Fire Lotus King Lai Yin didn't speak. However, no one would ignore this Supreme Elder. Everyone knew that she was the clansman of the Flaming Bar Empress. Although the Empress had gone missing, who dared to say that the Empress wouldn't return one day? Therefore, among the three major races, the Fire Lotus race was the weakest in terms of overall strength. However, the other races didn't dare to provoke them. Hong Yan's figure flashed, and she walked out from the Fire Lotus race's camp. She was the only one in the entire Fire Lotus race who walked out. However, something unexpected happened. It was different from what the Fire Lotus King Lai Yin had predicted. There were actually 11 fire demons that walked out from the Fire Demon race's camp. Every one of them was more than 8 meters tall. The one leading them was squatting among his clansmen. At this moment, he suddenly stood up, and his height was more than 10 meters. What was more terrifying was that his body was also burning with dual-colored flames. He looked like a miniature version of the Fire Spirit King. On the Fire Spirit race's side, there were also 3 dense spiritual flames. In terms of quantity, the Fire Spirit race and the Fire Demon race surpassed the Fire Lotus race. The Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King looked at the Fire Spirit King at the same time. Lai Yin said in a deep voice, "Fire Spirit King, what do you mean by this?" The Fire Spirit King said faintly, "Nothing much. I just think that my clansmen have a chance of winning. Our selection hall doesn't seem to have a rule on the number of participants from each race, right?" His voice sounded a little strange. His words were sometimes high-pitched and sometimes low-pitched. It was very uncomfortable to listen to. Lai Yin still wanted to say something, but she saw the Fire Spirit King's gaze. She could only suppress her anger. She was also extremely confident in her little sister, not to mention that there was still Jidong. When the representatives of the 3 races walked out, the representatives of the other races who were confident also walked out. Without any exception, those who dared to walk out from the crowd were all equivalent to Class 10 magical beasts or above. Just from the aura they emitted, Jidong could tell that they were probably the core elders. Including Jidong and the others, there were a total of 38 people that walked out. The Fire Puppet King that Jidong killed in the end was not enough to become a core elder. Aside from the Fire Owl King, the other 35 core elders actually walked out. The position of the acting leader of the Flaming Bar Holy Church was too attractive. They all planned to fight for it. After not seeing each other for a long time, the peak experts of the core world were all cultivating hard. Everyone was confident in themselves. Jidong, Fury, and Ajin walked out at the same time. When the core elders saw that 3 people from the Fire Puppet clan had actually walked out at the same time, there was no mocking laughter. However, 35 disdainful gazes landed on them at the same time. The Fire Puppet clan also wanted to fight for the position of the acting leader. This was simply the biggest joke in the world. Almost every core elder had the same thought in their hearts. As for the three exalted grand elders in the sky, aside from the impulsive Fire Lotus King Lai Yin, the other two would not care about the puny Fire Puppet Clan. In their eyes, a weak race sending so many people to participate in the competition was just asking to be humiliated. Furthermore, it was the infamous Fire Puppet Clan. The experts of the other races would definitely not show any mercy to them. The Fire Spirit King swept his gaze around and confirmed the number of people. He said indifferently, "There are a total of 52 participants. Let's split into groups and draw lots." Before he finished speaking, the three exalted grand elders frowned at the same time. They looked towards the deep hole at the entrance of the 15th floor. A fiery red figure suddenly passed through the entrance and entered the 15th floor. The Fire Demon King snorted coldly, and a shocking scene appeared. The Fire Demon King, who was over 12 meters tall, waved his right hand casually, and a huge golden palm with a diameter of over 10 meters appeared in the sky. At that moment, it seemed like all the fire elements in the entire space had condensed into this palm. The figure that had charged through the entrance didn't even have a chance to struggle before it was grabbed by the Fire Demon King's palm and stopped in midair. The Fire Demon King's palm, which was condensed from energy, was in the form of energy and was transparent. Hence, although the red figure that had suddenly appeared was grabbed, it could still be clearly seen. Jidong's pupils contracted slightly. The red figure that had suddenly appeared was actually a six-armed flame owl overlord. The Fire Demon King's ice-cold soul ripples reverberated in the air. "Puny flame owl, how dare you disrupt this ceremony? I'll give you a chance to explain yourself. Tell me, why did you barge in so rashly?" The Fire Spirit King and the Fire Lotus King couldn't help twitching their mouths after hearing what it said. Given their understanding of the Fire Demon King, if it wasn't a flame owl that had attached itself to the Fire Demon Clan, it would have been crushed to death by the Fire Demon King. There wouldn't even be a chance to explain itself. "Great Fire Demon Supreme Elder, you have to seek justice for the Flame Owl Clan. My death is not to be regretted, but the revenge of the Flame Owl Clan will depend on you." Although the Flame Owl Overlord was terrified, he immediately wailed when he saw that he was in the hands of the Fire Demon King. The Fire Demon King furrowed his brows and said, "Speak quickly. My patience is limited. What happened to the Flame Owl Clan?" The Flame Owl Overlord hurriedly said, "It's like this. 3 Supreme Elders, 3 months ago, one of our Flame Owl Clan's emissaries went to the Fire Crow Clan to send the token to participate in the ceremony. Who knew that when he came back, only 2 of his subordinates were left. Our Overlord was actually killed." The Fire Spirit King snorted coldly and said, "What are you saying? The Fire Crow Clan can kill your Flame Owl Overlord?" The Owl Fire Lord hurriedly said, "I heard that the Fire Crow Clan colluded with outsiders, and it seemed to be humans from the outside world. That's why they killed our Lord. When he obtained this news, our Lord Owlfire King immediately led over 1,000 elites of his clan to the 2nd level to inquire about the situation. But who would have imagined that they never returned? I stayed behind to hold down the fort in the clan, and I sent a few waves of people to investigate the situation. But without exception, not a single one returned. Something big must have happened to the Fire Crow Clan, and my Owlfire Clan's elites have probably fallen. I ask the 3 Supreme Exalted Elders to uphold justice for us." The Fire Demon King waved his hand and let go of the Flame Owl Overlord, allowing it to spread its wings and hover in midair. At the same time, its eyes that were hidden within the blazing flames swept towards the direction of the elders. Jidong's vision was shocking, and coupled with the strength of his soul, he could vaguely see that the Fire Demon King's eyes were actually one black and one gold. They were hidden within the flames and flickered with a cold brilliance. "Is the Fire Raven King here?" The Fire Demon King's icy voice caused the heads of the various clans to feel a chill in their hearts. If Jidong didn't make a sound at this moment, no one would be able to point out that he was the one controlling the Fire Crow Clan. However, he didn't choose to remain silent. "I am." Jidong took a step forward as he spoke and stared straight at the Fire Demon King in the air. He didn't dodge at all. The Fire Demon King's gaze shifted, and the group of earthly experts only felt two cold bolts of lightning shoot out from the Fire Demon King's eyes, landing directly on Ji-Dong's body. A powerful soul scan that was so arrogant that it didn't even try to hide itself. Ji-Dong calmly allowed it to scan him. The strength of his soul was contained within the God Fire Saint King armor, so the Fire Demon King could only scan his rank 80 plus magical power. Unless both sides truly fought, it wouldn't be difficult for Ji-Dong to conceal his saint rank soul with his current level of soul cultivation. As expected, you borrowed external power. You're actually a human. However, do you think that you alone can lead the Fire Crow clan to destroy the Fire Owl clan? A powerful pressure instantly descended along with the undulation of the soul. Ji-Dong only felt that the air around him had instantly solidified, and he couldn't communicate with any fire elements at all. That powerful pressure was exactly the same as when he faced the ancestor of the Earth Dragon. The Fire Lotus King was right. This Fire Demon King's cultivation had already reached the level of a high-level saint rank. That's right, it's me. According to the rules of the Holy Flaming Bar, even if I'm a human, as long as I have the token to participate in the ceremony, I can participate in this ceremony. Am I right, Fire Demon King Supreme Elder? Other than the Fire Lotus King, all the earthly experts looked at Ji-Dong with an extremely strange gaze. They all knew that the Fire Demon King had a violent temper that could explode at any time. To the earthly experts, Ji-Dong actually dared to go against it so directly. To them, this was completely an act that he was tired of living. The Fire Demon King felt that Ji-Dong's magical power level was a little strange. It wasn't that no human had ever come to the core world before, but it was already 1,000 years since someone was able to come to the 15th floor. Moreover, this human gave him a feeling that he couldn't see through. Tell me, how did you harm the Fire Owl clan? The Fire Demon King's dignified voice was filled with an unquestionable tone. Ji-Dong said indifferently, I didn't harm anyone. The Fire Owl clan brought this upon themselves. As the saying goes, the evil that you brought upon yourself is the hardest to bear. I'm sure the three supreme elders know that every time the Holy Church holds a ceremony, the powerful clans will go to some weaker clans to seize the token to participate in the ceremony, so that more clans can participate. The Fire Owl Overlord's envoy came to the Fire Raven clan to do that. The Fire Raven clan didn't allow it, so he used his own strength to threaten them. At that time, the Fire Raven clan had already submitted to me, so I naturally had to take action for the Fire Raven clan. Thus, I killed him. After the Fire Owl King found out about this, not only did he not reflect on himself, he even personally led over 1,000 elites of the Fire Owl clan to the second floor of the geocentric core in an attempt to exterminate the Fire Raven clan. Could it be that we could only resign ourselves to death? Could it be that the Holy Church of the Flaming Bar didn't have a rule that the higher clans couldn't easily descend upon the lower clans? They wanted to kill us, so we were only defending ourselves. What's wrong with that? Not to mention harming them. If we didn't kill them, we would be the ones dying. We had no choice but to take action. Chapter 540. Ji-Dong's words could be said to be impeccable. The strong preyed on the weak in the core world. Even though the leaders of the various clans who were preparing to participate had been disdainful when they saw that he was going to participate, they were now disdainful towards the Fire Owl clan. The Fire Owl clan, which was ranked 18th in the core world, had sent almost all of its elites to annihilate the weakest clan in the second layer of the core world. Yet, they had been annihilated. How could they have the nerve to seek revenge for such a shameful matter? If the Fire Owl King was still alive, he would definitely be driven mad by these looks of disbelief and disdain. However, they were also very curious about this fellow that the Fire Demon King had called a human. Could he have defeated all the elites of the Fire Owl clan by himself? In the hearts of these geocentric experts, they had long since directly disregarded the Fire Crow clan. Just like how the geocentric world was filled with mystery to humans, Ji-Dong, this foreign human, was also a novelty to these geocentric experts. For a moment, the gazes that landed on him had changed greatly. The Fire Demon King looked coldly at Ji-Dong and nodded. All right, then I'd like to see how capable you are to annihilate the Fire Owl clan. As he spoke, he raised his hand once again and was about to grab Ji-dong. At this moment, the Fire Lotus King suddenly spoke. Wait! The Fire Devil King turned his head to look at the Fire Lotus King. Although the two clans were not on good terms with each other, before they officially fell out with each other, they were both supreme elders. They still had to give each other some face. The Fire Lotus King said indifferently, Fire Demon King, what day is it today? Are you going to effect the celebration for such a small matter? It won't be too late to deal with this matter after the celebration. No matter who is right or wrong, the Fire Owl clan's lord has interrupted the celebration. I don't think I need to say how he should be punished, right? They could all tell that what Ji-dong had said was definitely true. Given the Fire Owl clan's actions, they would definitely be able to annihilate the Fire Crow clan. Hence, they did not think that there was any need to investigate this matter. The Fire Demon King's gaze gradually shifted to the Owl Fire Overlord. The Owl Fire Overlord trembled violently and said in horror, Lord Fire Demon King, our Owl Fire race has always been your vassal. You, the Fire Demon King, snorted coldly and said, I don't want trash under my command. If they can't even deal with the Fire Crow race, what qualifications does the Fire Owl race have to rely on me? It was already too late for the Fire Owl Lord to realize that something was wrong. The Fire Demon King did not show any mercy to it at all. The huge hand appeared once again, and the Class 10 Magical Beast 6-armed Fire Owl Lord did not even have the chance to resist. In the next moment, it was refined by the yin and yang flames. At the sight of this, Ji-dong's eyes twitched slightly. In terms of the control of the yin and yang flames, he was far inferior to the Fire Demon King. Furthermore, he could vaguely sense that when the Fire Demon King attacked, just the pressure of the aura alone was enough to make the Owl Fire Lord unable to resist. Although he could not see anything on the surface, he could already sense the aura of the demon domain. It was an invisible mental demon domain. Under the Fire Demon King's display of might, he had already slightly exposed his powerful strength. Just like crushing an ant, the Fire Demon King's emotions did not fluctuate at all. He said coldly, draw lots. The Fire Demon King said, a total of 52 people will participate in the selection. Later, I'll release 52 balls of fire energy, which are gold and black respectively. They correspond to each other. You guys will fight for them, and then you'll naturally be able to find your corresponding opponent according to the soul imprint on them. Don't try to be lucky. The situation of drawing lots will be different for each round. As soon as he finished speaking, the Fire Demon King waved his hand. In an instant, a magical power that looked like starlight danced in the air and densely covered the sky in the blink of an eye. When the starlight floated to 100 meters above the ground, the powerhouses, including Ji-dong and the other two, could already see that it was 52 balls of light, half of which were gold and half of which were black. Begin! The Fire Demon King's voice sounded out of nowhere. In the next moment, 52 figures soared up at the same time and grabbed towards the balls of light in the air. Everyone had opponents that they did not want to face. For example, the Fire Demon race, the Fire Spirit race, and Ji-dong's group all had their own clans. Under such circumstances, they had to fight for the balls of light of the same color if they wanted to ensure that they did not encounter their own clans. Ji-dong was very clear about this. His soul power instantly exploded and spread out in a small area. He captured the trajectory of the opponents that soared up around him and gave it to Ajin and Fury in detail. When they just shot up, the two fastest ones were Ji-dong and Ajin. The reason was very simple. It was because those creatures from the Earth's core used their own magical power to move, but they did not. Even if the magical power was faster, it was not as direct as the physical body. After Jin's ancestor dragon bloodline was awakened, her physical body naturally broke through to the saint level. The help that the Earth Dragon ancestor provided to her daughter was no less than that of Ji-dong, and Ji-dong was also in the same realm. Hence, when the Fire Demon King shouted, Ji-dong and Jin stomped their feet on the ground, leaving 4 deep footprints on the ground, and their bodies shot up into the sky. Ajin seemed to be intentionally trying to catch up with Ji-dong. After she rushed into the air, she twisted her body slightly, and her graceful body suddenly bounced in the air. She activated all her mana, and her body, which was already very fast, sped up again. In an instant, she surpassed Ji-dong. Ji-dong smiled and also twisted his body. He had already used a flying snake flash and was on par with Ah-jin. At that moment, the others had just started moving and were more than a body's length behind them. The moment they saw Ji-dong and Ah-jin shoot up, the gazes of the three Grand Supreme Elders froze. There were a few geocentric experts who were especially fast from other directions. For example, the 10-meter-tall fire demon, the only representative of the Fire Lotus tribe, the Red Lotus, was extremely fast as well. However, he was still slightly behind Ji-dong and Ah-jin. Seeing that he could not get the first spot, the fire demon could not help but roar angrily in the air. He struck out with his palms at the same time towards the 52 balls of light in the air. He wanted to disperse the energy from the 52 balls of light. He had absolute confidence in his speed. As long as he could buy himself a little more time, he would definitely be the first to get the lot. Furthermore, he planned to get rid of his tribesmen as well. At this moment, Ji-dong, who was in the sky, had already reacted. When the fire demon launched its attack, he waved both his hands at the same time, making a feint in the air. At the same time, Ah-jin, who was beside him, suddenly paused in the air. His right leg flew out like lightning and kicked the agitated Ah-jin's, but causing his speed to increase again. 3 balls of golden light flew towards Ji-dong and Ah-jin as he waved his hands. In the air, Ji-dong stretched out like a cloud dragon. Before the fire demon's attack landed on the balls of light, he had already taken the 3 balls of golden light into his arms. His body curled into a ball in the air and instantly descended. He stuffed a ball of golden light into Ah-jin's hands, and the two of them landed on the ground together. It was not that no one wanted to snatch it, but no one was a fool. Seeing that Ji-dong and Ah-jin were so fast and together, although many people wanted to snatch it, no one really dared to do it. After all, everyone had the 52 lots, and they still had a chance to try their luck. Seeing that Ji-dong and Ah-jin had landed, Fury laughed and came up to them. He took a ball of golden light from Ji-dong in a grand manner. When the Fire Spirit King gave the order to start, Fury also flew up, but he was just putting on an act. He couldn't fly physically like Ji-dong and Ah-jin. Although he was confident that he could reach a height of 100 meters, with Ji-dong around, why should he waste his precious magic power? The balls of light in the sky had already been bombarded and scattered in all directions. The tyrannical fire demon, the Red Lotus, and the Fire Spirit race's representatives all reacted the fastest. In just a short while, the golden color in the sky was almost swept away. They had all chosen the same color as Ji-dong and Ah-jin. There were a total of 26 golden spheres. Ji-dong had obtained 3 with the help of the God-Killing Guide. The Red Lotus had obtained 1. The Fire Demon had obtained 10, and the 3 strong fire spirits had obtained 3. So, 17 spheres had been obtained. In other words, there were still 9 places where they could avoid fighting against the strong fire spirits in the first round. Through the process of snatching the lots and Ji-dong's confession that he killed the Fire Owl King with his own hands, most of the geocentric powerhouses no longer looked down on him. Moreover, there were all the contestants from the 3 major races on the golden side. How could they be willing to fight with them in the first round? Even if they couldn't get the position of the acting sect master, being able to last a few rounds in the selection ceremony was enough to show off their strength in the geocentric world. Moreover, these geocentric powerhouses were all arrogant. If the 3 supreme elders didn't participate, they would have the strength to fight. The competition for the remaining 9 balls of golden light had reached a climax. Some people had already begun to move, and it wasn't just a matter of speed. After more than 10 breaths of time, the lot-drawing ceremony was finally over, and everyone had a ball of light in their hands. When he got the ball of light, Ji-dong couldn't help but admire the Fire Spirit King. The 52 balls of light were released in an instant. After he got it, he used his soul to sense it and realized that it actually contained a number. Obviously, it was through the corresponding number that the opponent in the first round was determined. Creating a soul ball that could store numbers was already the scope of the soul imprint. Ji-dong knew that it was impossible for him to achieve the level of the Fire Spirit King in an instant. After the 52 participants landed on the ground, there were those who glared angrily, those who were depressed, and those who were glad. But no matter what, they had already found their first opponent. Lot 1, fight. The Fire Spirit King's voice sounded in the air. Because it had lived the longest in the geocentric world, out of respect, the Fire Devil King and the Fire Lotus King jointly elected it to host the selection ceremony. The two people who had also obtained the black and golden orbs of light walked out together. The one who obtained the black orb of light was not humanoid, but a huge, three-headed Cerberus. This fellow was the king of the Cerberus clan. Previously, it did not get the golden lot, not because it was weak, but because it was not very good at flying. It could only fly with mana. However, it was not weak. The Cerberus clan was known as the Great Land Plunderers in the geocentric world. On the ground, they were extremely powerful. The entire Cerberus clan was ranked far above the Fire Owl clan in the geocentric world. They were ranked 10th. It could be seen how powerful they were to be able to make it to the top 10. The Cerberus King had an extremely high cultivation. It could be ranked 7th among the 36 core elders. The person who had obtained the golden orb of light also walked out. It was Fury, the Thunder Emperor. His huge body seemed very small in front of the Cerberus. The Cerberus was 9 meters long and 3 meters tall. Its three big heads stared at Fury fiercely. It opened its mouth wide, revealing its eerie white teeth. Its incomparably tyrannical aura directly exerted a great pressure on Fury. Senior, be careful. The Cerberus cultivation is extraordinary. It's equivalent to a peak class 10 magical beast, but compared to a divine totem beast, retreat as soon as you feel that something is wrong. Ji-dong's warning rang out in Fury's head. He was rather gloomy as well. The lot he had gotten was not bad, but who knew that Fury would still encounter a strong opponent? Among the 26 geocentric world experts, the Cerberus was definitely ranked in the top 3. Fury did not reply to Ji-dong. His body trembled slightly, and the layer of red crystals on the surface of his body shattered into pieces, revealing the purplish-blue armor underneath. The Fire Spirit King yelled in the air, "The first round of the selection begins now." Along with its command, the three-headed Cerberus pounced forward like a madman. Although it did not fly very fast, its speed on the ground was extremely fast. The explosive power of its body was displayed in an instant, and its huge body had already arrived above Fury's head like a dark cloud. Fury snorted coldly. Instead of retreating, he advanced. Even though his body was so tiny compared to the Cerberus, he did not cower at all. He stomped on the ground with his right foot and leapt into the air, charging straight at the Cerberus. The blue flames were ignited the moment Fury leapt into the air, filling the air of the entire battlefield. Fury grunted in the air as soon as he leapt into the air, and his surroundings were already covered in the blue flames. This was the Cerberus demon domain, boundless hellish flames. Most of the creatures in the geocentric world were the same as the magical beasts in the human world. It was very rare for them to possess a demon domain. Unfortunately, Fury was unlucky. The Cerberus he encountered was one of the few geocentric world experts that possessed a demon domain. Chapter 541. Hellfire was different from Yangfire and Infire. It did not have a strong direct killing ability, but it was a flame that burned the soul. Furthermore, it could not be defended against. If one fought within the range of Hellfire for a long period of time, their soul would be continuously corroded, and their fighting strength would continue to decline. If one was not careful, it could cause permanent damage. It could be said to be an extremely sinister, demonic domain. Although the Heavenly Stem Holy Disciples had some understanding of the creatures from the core, after coming to the core, they still did not have a deep understanding of them. Once the Hellfire stuck to him like a shadow, Fury realized that something was wrong. Cerberus had already pounced on him in the blink of an eye. It was obvious that it wanted to kill him in a single blow to save its energy. The speed that Ji-dong and Ajin had displayed earlier had caused most of the powerhouses in the core to be fearful of them. However, Fury did not display anything earlier. These powerhouses were completely using the methods of the core to measure Ji-dong and Ajin's abilities. In their opinion, they had to display their strength for others to see. Only then would the other creatures from the core be afraid of them. However, Fury was not human. Although his overall cultivation was inferior to Ji-dong and Ajin's, it was not that far off. Fury raised his right hand, and the Hell's Thunder Divine axe appeared out of thin air. In an instant, blinding bluish-purple lightning suddenly erupted, and the tyrannical power of lightning forcibly shook off the hellfire that had possessed him. At the same time, Fury let out another furious roar, and the yang lightning formation had already appeared behind him. The bluish-purple light in his eyes shone brightly, and a lightning dragon condensed out of thin air, carrying his body as it flew 10 meters horizontally. He managed to evade the three-headed hound's pounce in an almost impossible situation. One had to know that Cerberus could lock on anyone within the range of the hellfire at any time. Cerberus was already prepared to unleash its innate skill, but it did not expect Fury to dodge it. As soon as its huge body landed on the ground, it was unable to avoid being slowed down by the skill. With the Hell Thunder Divine axe above his head, Fury's body expanded against the wind, and the terrifying power of lightning burst out when a lightning dragon carried his body away. Not only his own lightning power, but the lightning power stored in the Sun Crown was also fully unleashed. From the moment they came into contact, Fury had already discovered the difference in strength between him and the Cerberus in front of him. It wasn't just the difference in mana. At the same time, he could also clearly feel that the three heads of the Cerberus could pose a fatal threat to him. If he wanted to defeat it, he could only rely on the element of surprise and the explosive power of the Heavenly Stem Saints. Cerberus was undoubtedly looking down on Fury. When Fury dodged Cerberus's Hellfire attack with his ultimate Yang Thunder Magic, he didn't hesitate to choose to erupt. Once the battle dragged on and the other party discovered the secret of his Hell Thunder Divine Axe, Fury wouldn't be able to withstand the exhaustion alone. After all, he didn't have any follow-up power in the core world. Hence, he chose to erupt instantly and unleash his full strength without holding back at the start of the battle. The Hell's Thunder Divine axe above Fury's head instantly turned into a sparkling and translucent purple. All the lightning disappeared at this moment. Fury's enlarged body and the Hell's Thunder Divine axe above his head had completely turned purple. At the same time, Cerberus's huge body was already covered by a forest of lightning. It was Fury's infernal domain, the realm of thousand lightning calamity. You know the demon domain, but do you think I don't? When Cerberus wanted to turn around after missing its attack, it realized that its body was already extremely numb. Although the numbness wasn't enough to really hurt it, it could definitely slow down its movements. The realm of thousand lightning calamity could only last for 5 seconds. Although Cerberus's cultivation base was extremely high, its huge body also meant that it had to endure more lightning. It would take at least 3 seconds to go from numbness and slow down to turning around. These 3 seconds, in addition to the previous delay, were more than enough for Fury. The realm of thousand lightning calamity wasn't that huge. It was only 4 feet long. However, when Fury's body bent into a bow in midair and he gripped the Hell Thunder Divine axe tightly with both hands, his entire body instantly became one with the axe. Even the 3 supreme elders in the sky couldn't help but narrow their eyes. Of course, they could tell that Fury didn't have any backup in the core world because he wasn't a fire element magic master. At the same time, they could also sense the weak mana waves on Fury's body. Fury's mana wasn't even comparable to that of any member of the Fire Lotus tribe. Hence, when Fury fell into Hellfire previously, they seemed to have already seen his failure. However, who would have thought that as soon as the Hell Thunder Divine Axe appeared, the Hellfire would be forcefully restrained? At the very least, it could not get close to Fury's body for the time being, allowing him to break free from the Hellfire's lock and dodge the Cerberus' pouncing attack, thus buying enough time for himself. At this moment, how could the power that Fury had unleashed be comparable to that of an ordinary 8-crown magic master? Extreme Yang Thunder mana wasn't inferior to the strongest powerhouse in terms of mana level. The Hell Thunder Divine Axe directly raised Fury's mana to another level. The Hell Thunder Divine Axe was formed from the power of heavenly thunder after being nurtured by the myriad lightning calamity realm for many years. The power contained in it was so strong that Fury couldn't fully unleash it. One of the innate characteristics of the Hell Thunder Divine Axe was that it could break through all mana barriers. At this moment, Fury had forcefully raised his mana to the level of a 9-crown magic master with the help of the Hell Thunder Divine Axe. Coupled with the full power of the Hell Thunder Divine Axe, the Yang Thunder Formation, and his own secret technique, the explosive power in that instant was enough to move the 3 supreme elders of the Flaming Bar Holy Church. The difference between the two was unimaginable. At this moment, the Fire Lotus King suddenly recalled the confidence that the Flaming Bar had in Ji-Dong. These humans really couldn't be evaluated by the geocentric creatures. Their strength might not be that great, but their potential was immeasurable. When the Cerberus of Hell turned around, it saw a thick and serene purple. Its body was so huge that it couldn't dodge at all at this moment. At this moment, it could clearly feel that its life was under great threat. Under such circumstances, it definitely wouldn't hold back. The big head in the middle opened its mouth, and a suffocating fireball appeared out of thin air. The fireball was the same blue color as the Hellfire. It was one of the innate skills of the Cerberus of Hell, Hell's Descent Bullet. The Cerberus had 3 big heads, which meant that it had 3 innate skills. With its cultivation as the king of Cerberus, each of its innate skills was comparable to his super sure kill skill. In its opinion, even if Fury's attack could threaten its life, as long as the Hell's Descent Bullet helped to block it for a while, it would have time to free up its hands, and it would no longer have to fear Fury. Unfortunately, the Cerberus of Hell didn't understand Fury either. It didn't hunt him down. In a 1,000 Thunder Purgatory realm, it only took it 3 seconds to turn around. However, there were still 2 seconds left in the 1,000 Thunder Purgatory realm. This meant that its body was bound to be affected to a certain extent. The Hell's Descent Bullet had been shot out, but its body still felt weak due to the paralysis caused by the lightning. This feeling would only disappear after at least 2 seconds. Fury and Ji-Dong had been together for a long time. As a senior brother, Ji-Dong was good at calculation, so he had more or less learned a little. These 2 seconds were within his calculations. Seeing the Hell's Descent Bullet being shot out from the Cerberus' mouth, Fury's face, which was hidden behind the helmet, couldn't help but reveal a proud smile. "Cerberus, you've fallen for my trick. Not to mention you. Even my junior brother hasn't seen the skill that I'm using right now." The biggest characteristic of this skill can be best described as all or nothing. The meaning behind all or nothing is that if you don't succeed, you'll die for a noble cause. In the face of the Hell's descending bomb, the Hell Thunder Divine Axe, which was as translucent as amethyst, actually shone with a demonic light. A strange scene appeared. No one had expected such a situation to occur. A strange circular pattern had appeared on the blade of the Hell Thunder God's axe. No one could see what was engraved on it, but it gave off an extremely dark feeling. The blue and purple lights flashed at the same time. In the next instant, the 3 heads and 6 eyes of the Cerberus of Hell froze. It was shocked to see that the talent skill that the big head in the middle, the Hell's Descent Bullet, had actually disappeared. That's right, it had vanished into thin air. The Cerberus of Hell wouldn't have been so shocked even if the Hell's Descent Bullet had been slashed apart by Fury's axe. However, how could it not be shocked when its Hell's Descent Bullet disappeared just like that? Moreover, it was still suffering from the 1,000 Thunder Purgatory realm at this moment. At the moment when the 1,000 Thunder Purgatory realm disappeared, Fury's divine axe happened to strike the big head in the middle of the Cerberus of Hell. The Cerberus of Hell's body shook violently. In the next moment, All the experts in the Earth's core realm saw the purple light on Fury's body and the Hell's divine axe vanish. At the same time, an unparalleled boom rang out from the middle of the Cerberus of Hell's head. A strange ball of light seemed to have sucked the Cerberus of Hell's body there. The ball of light was only 3 meters in diameter. The outer ring was filled with bluish-purple electric light, while the inner ring was completely pitch black. Fury's body disappeared from the Cerberus of Hell's body in a flash. In the next instant, he had already appeared behind the Cerberus of Hell. With a loud clang, the handle of the Hell's divine axe was stabbed into the ground, barely supporting his exhausted body. From the violent rise and fall of his chest, it could be seen that Fury was panting heavily and had to rely on something to support himself. This showed how much energy he had consumed. As long as the Cerberus of Hell still had the strength to fight, it would definitely be the one who would be defeated and killed. The strange black ball of light lasted for nearly 5 seconds before gradually fading away. During these 5 seconds, the Cerberus of Hell's body just stood there motionlessly. When the Cerberus of Hell's body reappeared, the Fire Devil King, who was floating in the air, couldn't help but sneer. The huge head in the center of the Cerberus of Hell had completely disappeared, leaving only the 2 heads at the side. However, in the Fire Devil King's opinion, Fury was definitely going to die in this battle. In order to kill the Cerberus of Hell, all 3 of its heads had to be chopped off. Previously, when Fury chopped off its head, the Fire Devil King had already determined that Fury was definitely going to die. The Cerberus of Hell was also a dog. Dogs and wolves shared a common characteristic, which was that they had copper heads, iron bones, and tofu waists. The weakest part was the waist, while the head was the toughest. The weakness of the Cerberus of Hell was its neck. If one wanted to kill it, then one would have to find a way to start from below its neck and chop off all 3 of its heads. Only then would one be able to kill it completely. As for the Cerberus of Hell with 2 heads, its cultivation would at most drop a little, but it would become even more violent. Not only did the Fire Devil King think so, but most of the earthly core realm experts also had the same opinion. Even the Fire Lotus King, Lai Yin, and even Jidong and Ah Jin's hearts sank. Once the Cerberus of Hell launched another attack at Fury, Jidong would definitely charge out to save his senior brother, even if he couldn't participate in the selection anymore. Among the experts present, the only one who had a different opinion was the Fire Spirit King. The light in the Fire Spirit King's eyes flickered. If one took a closer look, one would definitely be able to see the word astonishment in his eyes. The sneer on the corner of the Fire Demon King's lips froze in the next moment. That's because he could clearly see that the eyes of the other 2 heads of the Cerberus of Hell had turned gray, a gray without any signs of life. Its 9-meter-long body was actually split into 2 and fell to the ground. That's right, the Cerberus of Hell wouldn't die if it lost one of its heads. However, if its body was split into 2, how could it continue to live? Shock was written all over the faces of the earthly core realm experts. Everyone's gazes towards Fury had changed. The Cerberus of Hell, who was ranked 7th among the 36 core elders of the Flaming Bar Saint, was actually killed by Fury in a single move. Who could believe this? Fury's breathing gradually calmed down. A bluish-purple light poured into his body from the Divine Thunder Axe in his hand, injecting some demonic energy into his almost dried-up meridians. Chapter 542. The battle was over, but he did not leave just like that. He turned around and walked to the corpse of the Cerberus. He first picked up a crystal core that had fallen from the first head on the ground, and then raised the Hell Thunder Divine Axe. With 2 slashes, he chopped off the other 2 heads of the Cerberus that had lost the protection of its mana. Then he took out 2 crystal cores and 3 fist-sized crystal cores that were glowing with dark blue light, and put them all into his pouch. Then he turned around and walked towards Jidong and Ajin. The crowd of Earth's core powerhouses was dumbfounded. It was not a big deal to kill one's opponent in the selection, but to destroy the corpse and take out the crystal cores so valiantly was a huge insult to the Cerberus clan. Both sides would definitely have a deep grudge against each other. After all, there were 6 other 2-headed Cerberus that had come to this celebration with the king of the 3-headed Cerberus. Although they did not sign up for the selection, they were looking at Fury as if they wanted to eat him up. Fury acted as if he did not see all this. He quietly stood beside Jidong. Jidong gave his senior a thumbs up, and Ajin also nodded at Fury. This was a classic case of the weak defeating the strong. Even if Fury had the Hell Thunder Divine Axe, his overall strength was not as good as the three-headed Cerberus. Under such circumstances, he was still able to win. This was not as simple as just strength. Calculation, experience, and explosiveness were all indispensable. Senior brother, can you tell me the name of the skill you used just now? Jidong asked in a low voice. Fury smiled and said, "Of course I can. I only comprehended this skill after breaking through to the 8 champions. Because its destructive power is too strong, and because I'm staking all on one throw, I have never used it before. Today, I'll use that three-headed Cerberus to test it out. Its name is Hell Exterminating Demon Break. The center of the attack is where you see the black light. Its power is comparable to the thunderbolts that strike down from the 10,000 Lightning Calamity Realm. If not for the Hell Thunder Divine Axe and the mana of the spell formation, I would not have been able to use it." Jidong smiled and said, "Congratulations, senior brother. You have comprehended the 5 elements spell formations devour." He was very smart. After careful observation and careful consideration, he had already understood the key to Fury's victory. Although the power of this Hell Exterminating Demon Break was incomparably strong, Jidong also discovered its problem. This skill was no longer a single-target super-killing skill, but a single-target super-killing skill similar to the God-Slaying Strike. Hence, its power was so strong. The power of this skill could only be unleashed when the Hell Thunder Divine Axe really struck the opponent's body. However, it cannot be unleashed within the opponent's body like his God-Slaying Strike. The key to Fury's victory was not only the power of the Hell Exterminating Demon Break, but also the instantaneous devouring of the opponent's Hell Bomb. Otherwise, although the Hell Exterminating Demon Break was incomparably strong, it would at most be able to cause some damage to the three-headed Cerberus when it encountered a super-killing skill. Fury had already used up all his mana because of this skill. After that, he could only allow the Hell Bomb to be slaughtered by the three-headed Cerberus. The reason why he was able to completely defeat his opponent was because of that instantaneous devouring. After devouring the Hell Bomb, the power of the Hell Exterminating Demon Break was completely unleashed on the three-headed Cerberus. The origin of this devouring skill was the 5 Elements Array. There were a total of 9 5 Elements Arrays, and they were the same for all attributes. The first 6 were about the same in difficulty, while the last 3 were extremely difficult to cultivate. This 5 Elements Devouring Array was the 7th of the 9 arrays, and it was one of the 3 that were extremely difficult to cultivate. The Devouring Array's function was no longer as a support, but directly used in actual combat. In actual combat, when the Devouring Array was attached to a skill, as long as the opponent's attack mana was lower than the user's, the devouring effect of the Devouring Array would immediately activate, instantly devouring the opponent's attack. The principle of the Devouring Array was the same for all attributes. It was to instantly open up a narrow space and devour the opponent's skill into another world, just like a small black hole. If the opponent's attack mana exceeded the user of the Devouring Array, then the Devouring Array's effect would disappear. Jidong had also tried to comprehend this array before, but he had never succeeded. However, he did not expect that his senior brother had already taken a step forward and comprehended one of the final 3 great arrays. It was precisely by relying on the Devouring Array, one of the 3 ultimate 5 Elements Arrays, that he could borrow the instantaneous explosive power to directly kill the three-headed Cerberus. Fury looked at Jidong, smiled slightly, and said, "Junior brother, I can't help you in the following battles. It's all up to you now. These geocentric experts are indeed extraordinary. You must be careful. I was already very lucky to be able to defeat the three-headed Cerberus." After a short period of shock, the Fire Spirit King announced that the second battle had begun. This time, it was a battle between 2 geocentric creatures. One of them was an expert from the Fire Demon race. Jidong did not continue to communicate with Fury, but focused on the battle situation in the field. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. Only by understanding the fighting methods of these geocentric creatures could one better fight against them. Although the three-headed Cerberus did not fully display its strength, Jidong was already very vigilant. If it was him, it would not be easy to completely defeat the three-headed Cerberus. After all, it was a guy with 3 innate skills. The battles continued one after another. The fire demon race displayed great strength. In addition, the opponents they faced were not very strong. The 4 fire demon race participants who appeared in succession all won. No matter how weak their opponents were, they were still the core elders of the Holy Church of Flaming Bar. To be able to obtain such a result, it could be seen how powerful the fire demon race was now. The 6th battle, both sides, the Fire Spirit King ordered again. A figure flashed beside Jidong, and Jin had already flown out. The golden ball of light she obtained had the number 6 engraved on it. Just like Fury, Jin removed the disguise on her body as she flew out. Golden armor appeared quietly, and a eunuch maker appeared out of thin air in her right hand. She was about 1.8 meters tall, but the eunuch maker was 6 meters long. The huge golden scissors made people have to pay attention to it in terms of visual impact. Moreover, she was the first person to obtain the light ball for drawing lots with Jidong. Even Fury had displayed such powerful strength. When Jin appeared, she immediately dared not underestimate her at all. In terms of luck, Jin was much luckier than Fred. She wasn't facing one of the top core elders, but an opponent who looked like a human and didn't emit a strong mana wave. Jin's opponent was about 2 meters tall. Judging from his vision, he could not tell whether it was a man or a woman, but its human-like appearance was very pleasing to the eye. Its bewitching purple-black eyes were soul-stirring. What was more peculiar was that its upper body looked like a human, but its lower body had a long snake tail. Before entering the 15th floor, Jidong had carefully studied the race and appearance of the 36 core elders of the Holy Church of Flaming Bar. When he saw this guy, he immediately told Jin about his opponent's information. The Fire Demon King's Fire Demon tribe was ranked 2nd and 4th in the core world. However, as the Fire Demon King, his cultivation base was only ranked 2nd and 6th among the core elders. It should be known that the tribe rankings included the 3 great tribes, but the core elders did not include the 3 great tribes. The Fire Demon King's individual strength was ranked at the bottom. It could be seen that he was not very powerful among the core elders. Of course, this was only relatively speaking. How could it be easy to be one of the 36 core elders of the core world? The Fire Goblin King wiggled the snake tail on his lower body and stopped 100 meters away from Jin. He said softly through soul waves, "Your aura tells me that you should be a female. If that's the case, I'm a male. Look, am I beautiful?" As he spoke, his body actually emitted a masculine aura, and his purple-black eyes were like 2 huge vortexes as he stared at Jin. At that moment, the Fire Spirit King's clear voice was heard, and the 6th round of the first round of the selection had begun. As the light in his eyes changed, the Fire Demon King's body seemed to have become blurry, and the light around his body was distorted. His entire aura emitted an unfathomable strangeness. Jin stood there without moving, and the Fire Demon King was secretly delighted. His combat ability was indeed the weakest among the core elders, but he had the ability to launch spiritual attacks. The Fire Demon tribe was a hermaphrodite, so they could charm their opponents regardless of whether they were male or female. Seeing that Jin did not move, the Fire Demon King thought that he had succeeded. He twisted his snake tail and slowly approached Jin. As he got closer, the power of his spiritual charm would become stronger. However, at that moment, the Fire Demon King's body suddenly trembled violently, and his strange eyes that were like vortexes closed all of a sudden. He cried out in pain, and his body that was moving forward instantly flipped over, while intense red light gushed out of his body. It cried out in pain because it suddenly saw a pair of golden eyes. It was Jin's golden eyes. At that moment, it felt like 2 sharp thorns had pierced into its eyes. The Fire Demon King had no choice but to close its eyes immediately due to the intense pain. It could clearly sense that it would be blinded if it delayed for even a second. The Eclipse Phoenix had the eyes of the Phoenix, and Jin, who had awakened the Ancestor Dragon bloodline, also had the eyes of the Divine Dragon, a unique talent of the Dragon Emperor bloodline. Not to mention the Fire Demon King's spiritual charm. Even Ji-Dong's illusory Silver Demon territory could not confuse her. The Fire Demon King's self-righteous behavior was simply displaying one slight skill in front of an expert. At that moment, Jin's body had already dashed out as if she was flying close to the ground. The Widowmaker was trailing behind her, and she looked like a golden sword gleam as she traversed the distance of 100 meters in an instant. At that moment, the Fire Demon King displayed his strength as a core elder of the Flaming Bar's Holy Church. He did not underestimate Jin at all. As soon as he realized that his spiritual charm was ineffective, he reacted as he flipped over. His 2-meter-tall body seemed to have exploded, and his snake tail moved rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he had turned into a fiery red giant snake that was at least 20 meters long. His snake tail contracted and coiled into a snake formation. His giant tongue spat out flames as it attacked Jin, and the temperature in the air soared. When Jin removed her disguise, the Fire Demon King had already determined that she had the metal attribute. Among the 5 elements, fire was the bane of metal. Seeing that the spiritual charm was ineffective, he naturally had to go all out to release his mana in an attempt to exhaust Jin's mana. On the 15th floor of the core world, the fire element was extremely rich. Naturally, the Fire Demon King could replenish his mana at a high speed, while Jin did not have the support of any external metal element. The creatures from the core world who were able to participate in the selection were undoubtedly the best in the core world. Their intelligence was not inferior to that of humans. The battle between Fury and the 3-headed Cerberus had shocked the powerhouses from the core world, but had also shown them the weakness of Ji-Dong and the rest. Those who were not of the fire attribute could not last long. Therefore, after the Fire Demon King realized that his spiritual attack was ineffective, he immediately chose the most correct method. He did not want to be successful, but he wanted to avoid making mistakes. Regardless of whether Jin was stronger than him or not, as long as he persisted for a period of time and exhausted Jin's metal attribute, he would naturally be able to defeat Jin. The Fire Demon King was even drooling over Jin. It had always been his dream to be able to eat a human's body. Unfortunately, dreams were beautiful, but it was hard to say if it could be realized. Just when the Fire Demon King thought that he had succeeded in his plan, his mouth that was spitting flames almost dropped to the ground. "Are you the only one who can transform?" Jin sneered inwardly. She suddenly made a turn in midair and dodged the Fire Demon King's flame breath. Her delicate body soared and instantly soared high into the sky. With a shake of her body, her delicate body was enveloped by an intense golden light and instantly transformed. Huge, bright, golden dragon wings spread open on her back, and the powerful dragon aura, unique to the Ancestor Dragon, surged out. Jin had already revealed her dragon form. As she was half human and half dragon and had inherited the bloodline of the Ancestor Dragon, she did not need the support of saint-leveled energy when she transformed into her human form and dragon form. This was her body's form, and it was also completed with the help of the Earth Dragon Ancestor. Jin's body was not very large, and she was approximately 15 meters long. However, one must not forget the aura that she emitted. That was the bloodline that was directly inherited from the first generation of the Dragon Clan. Even the current Dragon Emperor's bloodline was far from being comparable to her in terms of purity. Chapter 543. At the beginning of chaos, there was also a core world. However, the creatures from the core world were not born earlier than the creatures on the surface. Snakes were a subspecies of dragons. Although the Fire Demon King's dragon bloodline was extremely thin, its body still trembled uncontrollably when it sensed the ancestral dragon's aura. Although it was already extremely powerful, and its demonic power was above Ajin's, the pressure from a high-ranking dragon caused its desire to resist to plummet. Ajin revealed her dragon physique and twisted her body in the air before pouncing towards the Fire Demon King. She didn't use any metal-type demonic power, but the two massive dragon claws below her abdomen were already swiping towards the Fire Demon King. The Fire Demon King reacted by then. Just as it was about to resist, it suddenly realized that it couldn't control its body anymore. Although the process only lasted for an instant, it was enough for Ajin to pounce towards it from the air. The ancestral dragons might could suppress any dragon clan or lesser dragon clan for up to 3 seconds. Unless the opponent had the same concentration of the ancestral dragon's bloodline as Ajin's, this suppression would definitely work. Ajin's father was the ancestor of the Earth Dragons, which meant that he was the ancestor of all sub-dragons. The Fire Demon King might still have a chance if it was facing Fury, the Thunder Emperor. However, it was facing Ajin, who had the ancestral dragon's bloodline. This chance was gone the moment the ancestral dragons might appeared. The dragon claws descended. One of them viciously grabbed the Fire Demon King's neck, which was a vital point, while the other grabbed the middle of its body. Ajin let out a dragon roar into the sky. In the next moment, the Fire Demon King's huge and tough body was torn into two, just like that. A huge rain of blood turned into a bloody mist in the scorching environment around them. The Fire Demon King howled miserably, but it no longer had a chance to escape. Ajin casually tossed the two halves of the corpse aside, and her massive dragon body soared into the sky again. Her dragon eyes flickered as she looked around. Ajin's aura wasn't any weaker than the 3 Grand Supreme Elders. After circling in the air, she turned into a golden light and landed beside Ji-Dong. She transformed back into her human form. Ji-Dong and Fury looked at each other and said in unison, "Too violent." Being powerful was not scary. At the very least, there was a chance for them to fight head-on. However, Fury and Ajin's successive performances had proven to the core world experts that the experts from the core world were indeed powerful. However, their strength could only be displayed in actual combat. It was obvious that neither the Cerberus nor the Fire Goblin King had displayed their full strength in the previous 2 battles. The Fire Demon King was even torn apart alive. 2 of the 3 humans had already performed so valiantly, and the one who did not make a move was obviously the leader. The experts of the Earth's core had no choice but to pay attention to them. After all, the way humans fought was too unfamiliar to them. Out of the 6 battles that had already ended, the fastest were the 2 battles between Ajin and Fury. It could be said that the outcome was decided in an instant. In the other 4 battles, although the 4 clansmen of the Fire Demon Clan had also displayed their powerful strength, they had to put in a lot of effort to obtain the final victory when they faced the clan leaders of the various clans. The Fire Spirit King hesitated for a moment before announcing the start of the 7th round of the preliminaries. The preliminaries continued, but there was no doubt that Ji-Dong and the other 2 had become the focus of the entire arena. Ajin and Ji-Dong looked at each other and nodded gently. How could Ji-Dong not understand what Ajin meant? There was no replenishment of metal mana here, and Ji-Dong was going to participate in the upcoming battle. It was even more impossible for him to activate the 5 elements yin-yang world to recover his mana with his other partners. Hence, if she wanted to help Ji-Dong as much as possible, she had to conserve her strength. Ajin had undoubtedly done her best in the previous battle. She had almost completely relied on her saint-level body and innate restraint to win the battle. Her mana consumption was minimal, and she could still fight later, unlike Fury, who no longer had the ability to continue fighting. Ji-Dong observed the situation in the arena calmly. The battles continued one after another. Other than the 2 battles between Ajin and Fury, the battles between the geocentric experts were basically decided by strength. When the first round of the preliminaries reached the 12th round, the 10-meter-tall fire demon from the Fire Demon Clan, who possessed the ultimate dual fire element, finally appeared. It was also extremely lucky. The opponent it drew was actually weaker than the Fire Demon King that Ajin had faced previously. 10 seconds. It only used 10 seconds to defeat its opponent with its powerful mana and soul pressure. From the beginning to the end, it only attacked once. That opponent instantly left the battlefield and admitted defeat. Who would be willing to sacrifice their own life to fight when they knew that they could not win? In the 13th round, the only representative of the Fire Lotus clan, Hong Yin, whom Ji Dong paid the most attention to, appeared after the powerful fire demon. Hong Yin's luck was not as good as that of the fire demon. Her opponent was an opponent that could rank in the top 10 among the core elders, the Fire Mantis King, who was known as the geocentric slaughterer. The Fire Mantis clan was not considered very strong in the geocentric world. The entire clan could only rank around second in the geocentric world. They were not even as strong as the Fire Owl clan that Ji Dong had exterminated. However, the Fire Mantis King was actually able to rank in the top 10 among the core elders. One could imagine how powerful its individual strength was. According to Ji Dong's understanding, the reason why the Fire Mantis clan could only rank in the top 20 was because they had a relatively small number of clansmen. Otherwise, in terms of individual strength alone, it would not be a problem for them to rank in the top 10. The Fire Mantis King's body was not much different from the mantises that Ji Dong had seen before. However, its hind legs were much thicker than those of ordinary mantises. When the wings on its back spread out, it looked like a huge flower petal. The most shocking thing was the two large blades on its forearms. The Fire Mantis King's body was only 3 meters long, but these two broadswords were 2.5 meters long. The blades were more than a foot wide and curved at the front, splitting into two halves. A dark red light flickered on and off the edge of the blades. Even without looking closely, one could easily feel its terrifying attack power. Hong Yin seemed much smaller in front of the Fire Mantis King. However, no one dared to underestimate her. Those who knew Hong Yin well knew how high her position in the Fire Lotus tribe was. Her cultivation was also the number 1 in the Fire Lotus tribe after the Fire Lotus King. Although she looked young and beautiful, she was extremely powerful. If it was not for the fact that the Fire Lotus King had great confidence in her, the Fire Lotus King would not have sent her alone to participate in the selection. Hong Yin made an inviting gesture towards the Fire Mantis King. The two large blades on the Fire Mantis King's forearms clashed against each other as a return gesture. In the past dozen or so selections, they could be considered as the most polite pair. In the next instant, the Fire Mantis King's body had already charged forward. It was so fast that it left a series of afterimages in the air. Ji Dong, who was watching the battle, narrowed his eyes. With his superb eyesight and spiritual power, he could clearly see that the Fire Mantis King's petal-like wings were constantly trembling when it moved. This wasn't a casual tremble. It was constantly adjusting its angle to help its body raise its speed to the maximum. There was no doubt that this geocentric expert's advantage lay in its speed and attack. As it pounced, an extremely brutal aura erupted from its body. The two large blades unfurled on both sides of its body, and a dark red light slashed out like two red streaks of lightning. The two large blades also left afterimages in the air, and even had a tail flame that was difficult to see with the naked eye. They looked to be only 5 meters long, but with a swing, their attack range was at least 10 meters. The Fire Mantis King's forearm blades had an extremely tyrannical name in the geocentric world: Azura's dual blades. There was once a geocentric race that surpassed the Fire Mantis King's Azura's dual blades that wanted to destroy them. In just a short 2 hours, the Fire Mantis King's Azura's dual blades had been stained with the blood of over 1,300 members of their race. From then on, the Fire Mantis King's Azura's dual blades became famous after that battle, and that was how it got its name as the geocentric slaughterer. Faced with the Fire Mantis King's attack, Hong Yin did not panic at all. Her graceful body moved slightly on the spot, and a visual illusion immediately appeared in the eyes of the spectators. At this moment, it was as if her body had really turned into a red lotus, quietly blooming on the spot. Faced with the huge Fire Mantis King's Azura's dual blades, This lotus seemed so delicate, yet had an indescribable nobility to it. The blades fell, and the flowers scattered. The spinning red lotus scattered in all directions under the azura's dual blades, turning into countless petals that floated in the air. The moment it scattered, Ji-dong felt an inexplicable pain in his heart. It was as if he could see the scene of the flaming bar withering, and he subconsciously clenched his fists. The drifting petals danced in the air, and Hong Yan's figure had completely disappeared. The petals danced in the air, and in the blink of an eye, they had already enveloped the Fire Mantis King's body. Although the azura's dual blades of the Fire Mantis King were extremely ferocious, what could it do in the face of these weak petals? The dark red light interweaved in the sky to form a light screen, trying its best to block the petals. From its actions, it could be seen how wary the Fire Mantis King was of the petals in the sky. Ji-dong immediately judged how the Fire Mantis King was feeling. This fellow's speed and attack power were undeniable. In fact, its attack power was even greater than that of the three-headed hellhound that Fury had fought previously. However, it had encountered an illusory opponent like Hong Yan. Just as Ajin had completely subdued the Fire Demon King, Hong Yan had also completely subdued it. The key problem was that the Fire Mantis King couldn't find Hong Yan's true body at all, so it couldn't attack her. Hong Yan was the embodiment of the geocentric Red Lotus. It could be said that her true body wasn't here at all. She was completely condensed from magic and soul. In a sense, she was very similar to the Fire Spirit tribe, but the difference was that the Fire Spirit tribe didn't have a body at all, while the Fire Lotus tribe had the geocentric Red Lotus source. At that moment, every petal contained Hong Yan's soul and magic. Ji-dong could clearly sense that as long as Hong Yan was willing, she could transform any petal into her body at any time. Suddenly, the gentle petals sped up. Every petal danced in the air as they spun rapidly from all directions, charging towards the light screen created by the azura's dual blades of the Fire Mantis King. When every petal came into contact with the azura's dual blades of the Fire Mantis King's light screen, it would spin violently for a moment before bouncing up gently. Meanwhile, the Fire Mantis King's body trembled violently as if it had been electrocuted. There was no longer any suspense in this selection. The Fire Mantis King couldn't display its advantage in front of Hong Yan at all. Even if Hong Yan couldn't break through its defense, it couldn't afford to exhaust her. The dancing speed of the azura's dual blades of the Fire Mantis King gradually slowed down. It looked as if it could no longer withstand the onslaught of the petals. At that moment, all the petals suddenly retracted and condensed in front of the azura's dual blades. Hong Yan reappeared, and under the guidance of her aura, the Fire Mantis King's dual blades of the Fire Mantis King chased after her. All the grievances from before seemed to explode in this attack. Everyone could feel that the power of the dual blades of the Fire Mantis King's attack in a straight line was at least at the level of a mid-level ultimate single-target skill. Hong Yan didn't even look at the Fire Mantis King. Under the tyrannical light of the blades, her body just disappeared into thin air, rippling like water and melting into the air. 6 red petals floated out of nowhere and quietly formed a circle around the Fire Mantis King's slender neck. They didn't attack, they just stood there quietly. A bottomless ravine appeared in front of the Fire Mantis King. The power of the azura's dual blades was enough to make anyone's scalp go numb. Even Ji-dong wouldn't be able to resist it with his physical body. Even a saint-level body wouldn't be able to withstand such terrifying destructive power. That bottomless ravine was only the width of a finger, and it didn't make any sound. Whether it was Ji-dong or anyone else from the Heavenly Stem Saints, none of them would be able to restrain the offensive magic to such an extent. The 30-meter-long ravine was like a tiny crack that had suddenly appeared on the ground. If one didn't pay attention, one wouldn't even notice its existence. However, all the experts present could feel the coldness within the blazing heat. What would happen if they were to be slashed directly? However, even such a powerful Fire Mantis King was defeated. It didn't dare to move an inch, or else its head would be separated from its body in the next moment. Although the Fire Mantis King was tough, it wouldn't be so tough that it wanted to commit suicide. Hence, it didn't move, and it didn't dare to move. In the end, it didn't lift the Azura's dual blades that had been slashed down. Chapter 544. I've lost. The Fire Mantis King's soul rippled. The 6 petals floated away and formed again, revealing Hong Yan's true appearance. Lifting something heavy as though it were light and floating like an immortal. These 2 phrases were the most appropriate to describe Hong Yan's victory. If Jin's battle was the most violent, then her battle was the most gentle. Neither side suffered any injuries. This was the first time this had happened since the start of the qualifier. The Fire Mantis King raised its Azura dual blades and nodded at Hong Yan with its triangular head. Then, it leapt out and exited the competition. Hong Yan's gaze looked towards the experts waiting for their battles. Her gaze naturally landed on Ji Dong. Her gaze seemed to contain a hint of provocation. Of course, this was what the other experts thought. Ji Dong had a completely different feeling. He could feel the curiosity in Hong Yan's gaze, as well as a hint of concern. Is she curious about my abilities? You'll see very soon. There were 52 experts participating in the qualifier. There were a total of 26 groups in the first round. When Ji Dong entered the arena, he was already in the second group. Without a doubt, this was extremely good for Ji Dong. It was extremely beneficial for him to be able to observe the battle styles of these top experts from the core world for a period of time. Only by understanding his opponents would he be able to defeat them better. When he heard the Fire Spirit King announce the second group to enter the arena, Ji Dong walked out calmly. He did not fly out or flash out like the other Earth's core experts. Instead, he walked out slowly. When he took his first step, his opponent had already arrived at the arena. Compared to his opponent, Ji Dong's luck could be said to be neither good nor bad. His opponent was a fellow that was only 1 meter tall and had the appearance of a mole. This strange creature had a pair of large feet, each of which was more than a foot long, just like the flippers of a duck. Its body was covered with an extremely smooth layer of fiery red fur, and a pair of small eyes darted around. On each of its 2 short front claws, there were 4 5-inch-long spikes. These should be its weapons. It could be said that this was the smallest Class 10 magical beast that Ji Dong had ever seen. However, this did not affect its danger at all. The short, fiery red fur on its body stood up slightly, and its originally short body curled up slightly. Even its sharp claws were slightly retracted in front of its chest, as if it was ready to attack. The Fire Electric Rat King ranked 14th among the core elders. The Fire Electric Rats were a rather low-profile existence among the underground creatures, so Ji Dong did not have much information on them. However, he could already tell a few things from the Fire Electric Rat King's body. Ji Dong was the complete opposite of the Fire Electric Rat King that had quickly arrived on the battlefield. He walked forward step by step, and with each step, his presence would rise slightly. His presence would also clearly become more powerful. He wore the Godfire Saint King's armor, and the vicious mask made it impossible to see his expression. His exclusive golden red light was released without any restraint. His mana was clearly much weaker than the Fire Electric Rat King, but he had the absolute advantage in terms of presence. The Fire Electric Rat King was like a tiny reef in the ocean, trembling under Ji Dong's storm-like pressure. Of course, Ji Dong did not think that the Fire Electric Rat King would be easy to deal with. In reality, how could anyone who could participate in the selection be easy to deal with? Everyone could feel the constantly rising pressure from Ji Dong's body. Due to the existence of his exclusive light, no one could tell what level his mana had reached. The blinding golden red light had already completely enveloped Ji Dong's body. It was already impossible to see his human form. An unknown opponent was the most terrifying. This was what Ji Dong wanted to give the Fire Electric Rat King. With the concealment of the exclusive light, even the 3 Saint-tier experts in the sky were unable to see just how strong Ji Dong was. The vigilance in the Fire Electric Rat King's beady eyes had already begun to grow stronger and stronger. Looks like I'm lucky to have drawn you. At this moment, Ji Dong's soul undulations suddenly spread out from the exclusive light. There had already been 19 matches in the selection, and there was almost no precedent of the two sides communicating. However, he did not seem to be in a hurry to make a move. Instead, he sent a soul message to the Fire Electric Rat King and did not conceal it at all. Everyone could feel the content of his soul undulations. A look of confusion flashed through the Fire Electric Rat King's eyes, but it did not respond. Right now, Ji Dong was giving it a lot of pressure, and it was afraid that if it was distracted, it would fall into Ji Dong's trap. Believe it or not, my ability just happens to be your nemesis. Ji Dong's soul undulations had already spread out once again. At this moment, he was less than 100 meters away from the Fire Electric Rat King. Actually, when Ji Dong walked out, the Fire Electric Rat King was already very depressed. The reason was very simple. Based on its previous observations, Ajin and Fury were obviously not fire-type magicians and would be greatly restricted in the core world. When the Fire Electric Rat King saw that its opponent was Ji Dong, its first thought was to use delaying tactics. With its innate ability, it was extremely confident that even if it could not defeat him, it would definitely be able to delay him. With such a short stature, anyone could tell what it was good at. Without a doubt, it was speed. The Fire Mantis King was already very fast, but compared to the Fire Electric Rat King, it paled in comparison. The Fire Electric Rat King was completely confident that in terms of speed, apart from the three Supreme Elders, no other creature in the core world could surpass it. It was even more confident that even if Ji Dong could see that it was good at speed, there was nothing he could do. However, when it saw Ji Dong's body radiate with a unique brilliance, it knew that it was wrong. This outsider in front of it was clearly a fire-type magician. In this core world, whatever it could obtain from the fire element, this person could also obtain. This discovery caused the Fire Electric Rat King's original confidence to waver. Right now, it only wanted to use its innate ability to fight it out with Ji Dong. At this moment, Ji Dong's soul message was transmitted. Of course, the Fire Electric Rat King didn't believe Ji Dong's words. However, there was no doubt that Ji Dong's soul message, which was filled with self-servitude, had left a faint shadow in its heart. Not to mention creatures from the core, even humans on the surface world, didn't know how to use psychological tactics. Squeak! The Fire Electric Rat King suddenly squeaked, its short body leaping into the air. It didn't even leave an afterimage as its body was already 100 meters in the air. Its speed could only be described as teleportation. While in the air, its body had already started free-falling. Its two sharp claws slashed out at the same time, and 8 golden-red rays of light pierced through the air towards Ji Dong. The Fire Electric Rat King had already used its full strength from the get-go. Although the power of these 8 rays of light couldn't compare to the Fire Mantis King's Azura blades, the sharpness of the attack showed that it was an agility-type magical beast just like the Fire Mantis King. However, the Fire Mantis King was more proficient in attack, while the Fire Electric Rat King was more proficient in speed. The unique brilliance on Ji Dong's body suddenly disappeared, revealing his original body. With a shake of his body, 3 figures appeared. Silver light flickered in and out of his eyes, and a faint layer of silver flashed across his body. The 3 figures had already flashed away like fish, causing the Fire Electric Rat King's attack to hit nothing but air. Ji Dong was becoming more and more proficient in using the fantasy silver in the magical realm. It wasn't just limited to attacking the enemy, it was also extremely effective when used on oneself. Its greatest advantage was that it could block the opponent's lock-on. Without a lock-on, even the strongest attack might not be able to land on the opponent, so what was the point? Seeing the faint layer of silver light on Ji Dong's body, the Fire Spirit King's eyes wavered slightly, but it quickly returned to normal. At this moment, Ji Dong's 3 figures had already merged into one, and he soared into the sky like an arrow towards the Fire Electric Rat King. The Fire Electric Rat King's small eyes darted around. It was surprised and a little disdainful. The surprise was naturally because Ji Dong had broken free from its lock-on, but the disdain was naturally directed towards the figure that had caught up to Ji Dong. In the sky, The fire-electric Rat King's falling body suddenly stopped. Its webbed feet tapped lightly in the air, and a low rumble sounded in the air. In the next moment, the fire-electric Rat King's body actually shot out horizontally, piercing through the air in an oblique manner. F***CK. Even Ji Dong couldn't help but curse when he saw the fire-electric Rat King flying diagonally. He had seen strong opponents, but he had never seen one as strong as this. This fellow wasn't simply borrowing force in the air, but using its huge feet to walk in the air as if it was walking on flat ground. It definitely couldn't fly for a long period of time, but in terms of agility and speed in the air, not to mention a pair of wings, even 6 pairs of wings wouldn't be able to match this fellow. Ji Dong's judgment of the fire-electric Rat King's abilities had been spot on. This short fellow specialized in speed, but he had never imagined that the fire-electric Rat King's specialty in speed would be so tyrannical. Borrowing force in the air to accelerate in an instant was practically no different from moving on the ground. Furthermore, this acceleration was completely like teleportation. Such a strange ability could only be described as breathtaking. At the same time that its body flew horizontally, the fire-electric Rat King's sharp claws waved again, and another 8 intersecting rays of light shot towards Ji Dong. It thought to itself, now that you're in the air, let's see how you dodge. It knew that it couldn't lock onto Ji Dong, so it didn't bother locking onto him. Instead, it followed the trajectory of Ji Dong's body and launched its attacks. Without a doubt, although it couldn't fly, its ability to jump in the air was enough to make it a true aerial killer. Unfortunately, the fire-electric Rat King didn't expect that it wasn't the only one in the world that could change directions in the air. Ji Dong's previous flight had always been using his sole power to control the air to propel his body forward. He still had a pair of real wings that he hadn't used yet. His wings suddenly spread open, and a golden circle of light appeared behind him. It was the soaring Yang fire formation. Both wings flapped to the side, and the winged serpent transformation was finally used. Ji Dong's entire body was like a bolt of lightning as he chased after the fire-electric Rat King. Previously, when Ji Dong had been flying, he had maintained a very normal speed in order to confuse the fire-electric Rat King. Now that he had suddenly exploded, he displayed his lightning-like speed. In terms of speed, the fire-electric Rat King was still slightly superior. Its ability to accelerate in the air was too strange, and it could change directions at any time, making it impossible to defend against. Although Ji Dong's sudden burst of speed had caused the fire-electric Rat King to turn pale with fright, it was only because it didn't have the time to launch another attack. Both feet in the air, it had already leapt in another direction. That kind of instantaneous acceleration wasn't something that Ji Dong could catch up to even with the winged serpent flash. Even if the winged serpent was here, it wouldn't be of any use. However, although Ji Dong's speed wasn't as fast as the fire-electric Rat King, because of Ji Dong's previous burst of speed, the distance between them had decreased a bit. At the same time, Ji Dong's eyes had already turned silver, and a soul detection net had already appeared in his mind. That's right, Ji Dong couldn't catch up to the fire-electric Rat King in terms of speed. However, with the fire-electric Rat King's soul cultivation, it was impossible for it to hide from Ji Dong's detection. The fire-electric Rat King naturally felt that Ji Dong had locked onto it from all directions, but it didn't care. Being able to catch up was one thing, but being able to catch up was another. However, its complacent attitude only lasted for half a second. In the next moment, it sank into panic. A powerful suction force suddenly appeared behind it, pulling at its body and causing it to slow down. Ji Dong changed directions and used the flying snake flash to its fullest, continuing to chase after it. His right hand made a grabbing motion in the direction of the fire-electric Rat King. It was the god-slaying attraction. A strong sense of danger appeared in the fire-electric Rat King's heart. Ji Dong's psychological suggestion from before showed its effect at this moment. The fire-electric Rat King's first thought was that Ji Dong could control its speed. With this change in attitude, it naturally couldn't remain calm. It didn't care about attacking, and instead kicked backwards with all its might, pushing its speed to the limit. In reality, Although Ji Dong's god-slaying attraction was strange, there was a limit to its suction force. The Fire-Electric Rat King was a creature that specialized in speed and was also a peak class 10 magical beast. Even with the god-slaying wall, Ji Dong still might not be able to catch it. Chapter 545. If the Fire-Electric Rat King could calmly change directions and escape, then Ji Dong wouldn't be able to do anything to it in a short period of time. Unfortunately, the Fire-Electric Rat King's heart was already in a mess. In the face of such danger, it subconsciously wanted to run in the opposite direction. Just as it was about to raise its speed to the limit, the pulling force behind it suddenly disappeared. The Fire-Electric Rat King's speed instantly reached an unprecedented level, and it flashed forward like an arrow leaving the bow. Bang! A violent collision sound rang out in the air, and the air in the battlefield surged violently for a moment. The Earth's core experts watching from afar could feel a strong gust of air rushing towards them, and the Fire-Electric Rat King in the air froze in mid-air in a strange position, its body twitching violently as it fell downwards. The hypnosis caused it to lose its composure, and the God-vanquishing guide caused it to choose a fixed direction to escape in. When the Fire-Electric Rat King's speed suddenly increased to the limit, what awaited it was the invisible God-vanquishing wall. The God-vanquishing wall wasn't very sturdy, and was at most like a wall. However, when the Fire-Electric Rat King crashed into it, it was like a plane crashing into a small bird at high speed. At this time, the Fire-Electric Rat King was completely stunned. Even though its level 10 body hadn't suffered any fatal injuries, it was still confused. Calmly flapping its wings, the flying serpent flash once again activated. Ji Dong easily grabbed the Fire-Electric Rat King's neck after it fell 5 meters, and his calm yet proud soul ripples once again spread across the battlefield. I said before, I'm your nemesis. Of course, he wouldn't tell the Earth's core experts how he had done it, but he had indeed done it. The Fire-Electric Rat King only managed to struggle a few times before falling into Ji Dong's hands. The Fire-Electric Rat King's beady eyes were still in a daze as Ji Dong landed on the ground. It hadn't yet recovered from the impact. Ji Dong raised his left hand and flicked its head, injecting a wave of soul force into it. Only then did the Fire-Electric Rat King calm down. Even so, the Fire-Electric Rat King felt as if its body had been crushed by an enormous fire demon. There wasn't a single part of its body that wasn't in pain. Ji Dong lightly waved his right hand and flung it 10 meters away. You lost. Leaving behind these 3 simple words, he continued to walk unhurriedly back to where he stood before. If the entire process of the battle had to be described, then the phrase, eagle catching a chick, was the most suitable. Other than the 3 Grand Supreme Elders of the Flaming Bar Holy Church, who could barely see some clues, the other Earth's core experts simply did not understand what had happened, nor did they understand how Ji Dong had managed to capture the Fire-Electric Rat King. To win the battle and not reveal too much of his abilities, this battle was undoubtedly perfect for Ji Dong. From the beginning to the end, he did not release a single decent attack. He only used his magic to control the Fire-Electric Rat King's body at the end, causing it to be unable to resist. To be able to defeat an opponent of the level of the Fire-Electric Rat King in front of everyone's eyes, and to be able to conceal his own abilities so well, there was no doubt that he could not have done any better. The way the experts of the Earth's core realm looked at Ji Dong had completely changed, faintly seeing him as a powerful existence on the same level as the representatives of the 3 great races. The Fire Spirit King and the Fire Demon King's gazes fell on Ji Dong at almost the same time. Previously, when Ji Dong's soul power suddenly erupted, it caused them to be somewhat afraid. The words mental demon domain had already appeared in the minds of the 2 great experts at the same time. The selection continued, and the remaining few matches were not exciting. The stronger side obtained the final victory, and a loser was eliminated. Out of the 52 participants, only 26 were left. In the first round of the competition, all 3 representatives of the Fire Spirit race had advanced, and only Hong Yen from the Fire Lotus race had passed. Of the 10 people from the Fire Demon race, 1 was eliminated, and 9 people advanced. Just the three great clans and Ji-Dong's group alone occupied 16 spots. As for the remaining 10 Earth's core experts, all of them were powerful existences that were ranked highly among the core elders. Those who were able to come here were not weak, and the further they went, the more intense the battles would be. The first round of selection has ended. Prepare to draw lots for the second round. The Fire Spirit King's faint voice spread out. There are not so many formalities in the core world, and there was no time for rest in the selection. With each round, there would only be less and less time for rest. With the experience of drawing lots in the first round, the 26 experts who had won the first round went forward at the same time after hearing the Fire Spirit King's words, trying their best to occupy a good spot. At this moment, the Fire Demon race, which had a large number of participants, showed their advantage. With their huge bodies, they tried their best to spread out and try to block the others. The largest fire demon was already eager to try, and its gaze was fixed on Hong Yen. Even though Ji-Dong's group performed well, it was obvious that the strongest fire demon had already decided that Hong Yen from the Fire Lotus race would be his final opponent. Facing the serious preparation of the participants, the Fire Spirit King was not anxious at all. He said leisurely, "I've said that the format of drawing lots for each round is different. Why are you so close to the front?" On the ground in front of the suspension bridge of my Fire Spirit Race's castle, I've already used my soul to inform my clansmen to prepare 26 crystals. You can go and take them back now. When you come back, you could draw lots to decide your own positions. As soon as the Fire Spirit King's voice fell, all the participants flew out at the same time, except for Fury. The Fire Demon race was the most oppressed. Previously, in order to occupy an advantageous position, they were all in the innermost circle, so their speed was naturally not fast. Furthermore, they were huge, and speed wasn't their forte. In an instant, the 9 fire demons fell behind. The Fire Spirit King looked at Fury, who was standing there motionless, and frowned. "Why aren't you going?" Fury chuckled. "I'm slow, and I can't outrun them anyway. The last crystal is mine. My partner will bring it back for me." Although Fury's demonic power was almost exhausted, the scene of him killing the 3-headed Cerberus on the battlefield left a deep impression on everyone. Even the 3 Supreme Elders weren't completely confident that they could withstand the prison of Thunder Demon destruction. The black hole with lightning made everyone tremble from the depths of their souls. Fury simply sat down leisurely, still holding his Hell's Thunder Divine Axe in his hand. Although there was no thunder element here, the Hell's Thunder Divine Axe was born from the myriad lightning calamity realm, and was itself an extreme condensation of thunder element. Therefore, it could more or less serve as a supplement for Fury. He had never thought of participating in the next battle. Fury was already very satisfied with himself to be able to defeat Cerberus, an expert whose cultivation was in no way weaker than the heavenly stem divine beast. One must know that this was the Earth's core world, and there was no thunder element to supplement him. The first to arrive in front of the Fire Spirit Race's castle wasn't Ji-Dong. If the previous Fire Electric Rat King could arrive at this stage, it would undoubtedly be the first to take the lead. Unfortunately, it lost. At this moment, there were 2 people who arrived in front of the Fire Spirit Race's castle. One was Hong Yin, and the other was Ah Jin. If she was in human form, Ah Jin's speed naturally wouldn't be comparable to Ji-Dong's. However, don't forget that the dragon race was born with the ability to fly. Furthermore, she had awakened the ancestral dragon's bloodline. Relying on her powerful flying ability, the winged serpent transformation technique that she learned from Ji-Dong, and the soaring matrix that Ji-Dong used his soul power to assist her, she actually rushed to the front with Hong Yen. The 26 crystal rocks were right in front of him. At this moment, Ji-Dong's soul power was raised to the maximum without reservation. He was around 5 meters behind Ah Jin and Hong Yin, and could be considered to be in the second tier. However, he was very clear that if he wanted to control the fate of the competition, then only the person who obtained the crystal rocks first could do so. Ah Jin did not fight with Hong Yin. With a casual swipe of his hand, he had already scooped up 3 pieces of crystal rock. On the other side, Hong Yin had also chosen a piece. When she turned around and leapt back, Jin, who was running side by side with her, suddenly felt that Hong Yan's gaze seemed to have communicated with Ji Dong. The Heavenly Stem holy disciples didn't know that Ji Dong had reached an agreement with the Fire Lotus tribe. Ji Dong didn't say anything because he was afraid that his companions would think that he was ignoring the bigger picture because of his relationship with the Flaming Bar. Furthermore, it was better for this kind of alliance to be known by as few people as possible. Once his companions found out about the situation, they might reveal something on their faces and expose themselves. Naturally, he didn't want this to happen. Very soon, the powerful practitioners who had obtained the crystal rocks returned to the entrance of the 15th level. Jin distributed the 3 crystal rocks she had obtained to Ji Dong and Fury. The 3 of them stood together. Although the tallest fire demon among the fire demon tribe's representatives had his twin flames covering his body and his appearance couldn't be seen, judging from his aura, he was very dissatisfied with this round of drawing lots. In fact, the crystal rocks in the hands of every powerful practitioner looked exactly the same. On the surface, there was no difference at all. Only by using one's soul to investigate carefully would one be able to discover the subtle differences within. When they were fighting for the crystal rocks, it happened in the blink of an eye. In such a short period of time, how many people could have the time to investigate and make a judgment? After all, not only did they have to determine their own position, but they also had to determine their opponents. In the end, most people could only rely on luck. Inject your mana into the crystal rock, and it will naturally show up, the Fire Spirit King instructed. Everyone injected their mana into the crystal rock. Instantly, 13 rays of golden light and 13 rays of black light were projected from the crystal rock at almost the same time. Every ray of light projected into the air was a number from 1 to 13. The situation of the second round had already appeared. Ji Dong and Fury got number 1 at the same time, the golden number 1 and the black number 1. Jin got number 3, and her opponent would be a Fire Demon Lord, while Hong Yan got number 7, and her opponent would also be a Fire Demon Lord. Seeing such a matchup, the Fire Spirit King's eyes narrowed slightly, and he looked at Ji Dong meaningfully. The Fire Demon King's aura obviously became heavier before returning to normal. There was no doubt that this was the best matchup for Ji Dong and the rest. Not only Ji Dong, but even Ajin and Hong Yan were the same. All 26 people who had entered the second round were experts among experts. In terms of strength, the core elders who had entered the second round weren't any weaker than ordinary fire demon overlords. Furthermore, they all had different abilities. Choosing a fire demon overlord would be easier to deal with. After all, the abilities of the fire demon race were the abilities that Ji Dong had inherited from the 2 sovereigns. Ajin was naturally more familiar with them. As for Hong Yan, he was even more familiar with them than Ajin. It was not too difficult to choose number 1 for himself and Fury at the same time. After all, as long as they could see through the mystery of the crystal rock, and Jin was the first to get it, it could be done. However, it was extremely difficult to choose opponents for Jin and Hong Yan respectively. At that moment, not only did Ji Dong have to let them choose their own crystal rock, but he also had a judge who would get the corresponding crystal rock. This judgment could only be completed in a very short period of time, and he had to have an extremely accurate judgment of each opponent's position. The change in the Fire Spirit King's gaze was naturally only because of Jin. Of course, he did not know that even Hong Yan's lot was actually told to her by Ji Dong through the soul connection. The first match of the second round begins. The Fire Spirit King continued to announce. Fury cheerfully raised the crystal rock in his hand and looked at Ji Dong with a mischievous smile. I admit defeat. After saying that, he threw the crystal rock away and walked back to where the Heavenly Stem holy disciples were. Ji Dong won the second round without a fight and directly entered the top 13. It was obvious that this was intentional. However, what made Ji Dong secretly awe was that the same situation happened in the second round. The especially tall fire demon's opponent was also his clansman, and his opponent also admitted defeat and passed. Obviously, the Fire Demon clan also knew that it was impossible for all of them to advance in this round. Since that was the case, they would let the clansman with the most hope save as much energy as possible to deal with the following matches. Therefore, the first battle of the second round was between Jin, who got number 3, and his opponent, a fire demon overlord. Although they were both overlords, the cultivation of the fire demon overlord and the fire owl overlord was worlds apart. The fire demon overlord that Jin drew was emitting intense golden flames that constantly came into contact with the fire elements in the air, causing the glaring extreme yang fire to form a scorching protective layer around its body. This fire demon overlord was 8 meters tall. As long as one was within 100 meters of its body, one could feel the already scorching air become even hotter, and the water-like ripples made everything look unreal. Chapter 546. Ajin was a metal element magic master. Even though she possessed ultimate demonic power, it was impossible for her not to be affected by the opponent's fire element. Among the 5 elements, fire countered metal. Fortunately, the opponent used yang fire. If it had been a black fire demon, it would have countered her even more severely. Jidong did not use his soul power to assist Ajin. If he did that in front of 3 saint-leveled experts, not only would he not be able to help Ajin, but he would also expose his saint-leveled soul power. The third round of the second round began. Following the Fire Spirit King's command, the fire demon overlord roared and swung its right hand in the air. A huge golden fireball with a diameter of over 2 meters flew towards Ajin. At the same time, it flew close to the ground and charged towards Ajin. Ajin was not Jidong. Although she had a saint-level physique, she did not have saint-level soul power. Thus, it was impossible for her to dodge the opponent's attack. The eunuch maker had already appeared in her hands out of thin air. With a slash in the air, an ear-piercing sound was heard. A bright golden blade of light cut through the air and forcibly dispersed the opponent's golden fireball, thus opening the prelude to this battle. The fire demon overlord charged in extremely fast speed. It opened its hand and seemed to want to grab Ajin. This was the bright sun hunting technique that Jidong was proficient in. However, when its huge body was less than 10 meters away from Ajin, its movements suddenly changed. It clenched its hand into a fist and took a step forward with its left leg. It spun its body and punched towards Ajin. It was the Scorching Sun Devouring. The Scorching Sun Devouring was the most basic technique of the Fire Demon Overlord. Any fire demon with the Yang attribute would first cultivate this technique, just like how Jidong had started cultivating. Although this was a basic technique, it had endless follow-up moves. It had also gone through many trials and tribulations. The fire demon overlord punched out, and the golden flames that were spreading around its body instantly gathered on its fist. It charged towards Ajin ferociously. Its body was so huge that its fist was almost half the size of Ajin's body. But at that moment, dozens of metal spikes suddenly rushed out of the ground and pierced the fire demon overlord's body. This unforeseen attack hit before the fire demon overlord's fist arrived. An ear-piercing sound of friction rang out. The fire demon overlord's body became sluggish for a moment. The moment the metal spikes came into contact with its body, they immediately softened. Although they slowed it down, they couldn't hurt it all. Just like that, the metal spikes softened one by one, and the fire demon overlord charged straight through them. What surprised the spectating geocentric experts was that Ajin did not use the eunuch maker to deal with this punch. Instead, he moved the eunuch maker to his left hand, clenched his right hand into a fist, and similarly punched out. His disproportionate body faced Ajin head-on as well. At this moment, the aura that erupted from Ajin was not any weaker than his opponent's. What the Fire Demon King and the other fire demons in the sky could not believe was that with a deafening boom, the Fire Demon Overlord was actually sent flying by Ajin's punch. Its 8-meter-tall body was like a golden fireball in the sky, and it flew for 30 meters before crashing to the ground. It rolled a few times before standing up. Meanwhile, Ajin's body was also engulfed by a ball of golden flames, which lasted for a moment before disappearing. The fire demon overlord stood up and subconsciously swung its right arm. Its thick right arm seemed to be a little stiff after clashing with Ajin. A human had actually sent an 8-meter-tall fire demon overlord flying with a punch, and he could even injure its arm slightly. This was even under the circumstances that the 5 elements of both parties countered each other. If it was not for the fact that they had seen it for themselves, no one would have believed it. Indeed, Audine was at a disadvantage both in terms of mana and attributes. However, she still had a body that the fire demon overlord could not compare to. So what if her body was petite? She had a saint-level physique. With the protection of Xian Jin's mana and her saint-level power, it would be strange if the fire demon overlord did not suffer from this head-on collision. However, Audine was not having a good time either. The instantaneous eruption of the ultimate yang fire made her feel extremely uncomfortable. After all, she could not reverse the fact that fire countered metal. If she had not comprehended a certain degree of primal chaos gold and had the holy flame armor made from the demonic smoke pufferfish, she might have suffered from this punch. The fire demon overlord's mana had clearly reached the standard of a level 97 or level 98 fire magic caster. The mana of both parties was indeed not on the same level. Furthermore, Audine's mana had not been replenished. The words "end the battle quickly" immediately appeared in Audine's mind. He took a deep breath and used the power of the primal chaos gold to force his opponent's tyrannical ultimate yang fire out of his body. In the next moment, Audine's body had already shot up and was flying towards the fire demon overlord like an arrow. Roar! The soreness in its arm made the fire demon overlord furious. It leaped up and landed on the ground with a loud bang. The golden flames on its body instantly became even more intense, and no one dared to look down on it. At that moment, its entire body seemed to have turned golden and transparent. The temperature in the air rose rapidly, and a dazzling golden sun shone behind it. Its huge body instantly moved, and it swung its right fist from its waist towards Audine. The tyrannical ultimate yang fire burst out and turned into a huge golden awl that bombarded Audine. With the fire demon overlord's punch, it seemed as if all the yang fire elements in the space of the 15th layer of the core world had been absorbed by it. That shocking punch brought with it an incomparably terrifying mana fluctuation. It was the fire demon overlord's sure kill skill, Great Brilliant Sun All. Audine had sparred with Ji Dong more than once, so she naturally recognized this skill. She was also completely sure that if Ji Dong did not rely on external forces, this skill alone would not be able to compare to the fire demon overlord in front of her. This was clearly the Great Brilliant Sun, all that had reached the level of a high-grade sure kill skill. An ordinary fire demon overlord could already use a high-grade sure kill skill. It was no wonder that the fire demon race was known as one of the 3 strongest races in the core world. The air seemed to have solidified. Audine could clearly feel that the surrounding air was restraining her body, and she had no choice but to fight head-on. Oomph! Audine snorted angrily. Her delicate body swayed slightly, causing the air around her to explode. She raised her right hand, and the eunuch maker had already been retracted. Facing the Great Brilliant Sun All, her entire body suddenly slowed down. The golden ring of annihilation silently appeared in her right hand. However, there was an additional strange luster on the golden ring of annihilation at that moment. It was a faint layer of white light that should have belonged to the gung metal element, but that white was clearly not the white metallic luster of the gung metal element. Instead, it was an extremely cold and strange luster. A loud and clear dragon roar rang out from Audine's body. Behind her, a huge dragon pattern appeared. It was the appearance of a dragon that her main body could transform into. Even though she did not transform into a dragon at that moment, her skin was already covered in a layer of fine dragon scales. She stretched out her right hand, and intense mana undulations distorted the air. Her delicate body stretched out, and the golden ring of annihilation flew out of her hand. It turned into a golden dragon with a white luster and met the fire demon overlord's Great Brilliant Sun All. The moment the golden dragon flew out, the Een gold condensation formation replaced the dragon-shaped shadow behind Audine. Even though there was no metal element here, it could still help Audine's attack become more solid. A look of disdain appeared in the Fire Demon King's eyes. To him, this battle was already over. Although Ajin's golden dragon was powerful, it barely reached the level of a high-level ultimate skill. In terms of mana, it could not compare to the great brilliant sun all released by his subordinate. Furthermore, their attributes are mutually exclusive, so there's no way for Ajin to emerge victorious in this clash. Although these humans are quite powerful, that's only in the human world. If they encounter the true experts of the core world, they'll still perish along with them. Not only did the Fire Demon King think so, the Fire Lotus King Lai Yin also felt the same way. He couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Although these humans had all kinds of amplification techniques, their own magic power was still a little weak. This metal-attributed woman's magic power was even stronger than Ji Dong's. When Ji Dong faced a stronger opponent in the next round, would he still be able to win? Sister, although what you said previously was very reasonable, what if it didn't encounter the Fire Demon race? Among the 3 Grand Supreme Elders, only the Fire Spirit King didn't make the judgment that Ajin would definitely lose. There was a hint of doubt in its eyes. Even with its powerful soul power, it wasn't sure if its judgment was correct. At this moment, the mana of both sides collided without any fancy moves. When one's cultivation reached a certain level, the battle would usually end in a short period of time. Everyone could see that whoever gained the upper hand in this collision had basically determined the outcome of the battle. At the moment before the Golden Dragon and the Great Sun Cone collided, a strange scene appeared. There was no doubt that the tip of the Great Sun Cone was the strongest part of its attack. However, at this moment, the tip of the cone actually cracked. That's right, it cracked. It split to the left and right as if the Great Sun Cone had an extra mouth. Then both sides collided. As a saint-rank powerhouse, the Fire Demon King's judgment of mana naturally couldn't be wrong. There was indeed a certain gap between the mana of both sides, but that referred to the situation where the skills of both sides could collide together. According to normal development, this should have been inevitable. However, the tip of the Fire Demon Overlord's Great Sun Cone suddenly cracked, and there was a problem with its strongest point. When it collided again, its original advantage disappeared. Amidst the loud bang, the Golden Dragon was instantly engulfed by the dazzling golden flames and melted in the air. However, the Great Sun Cone also lost its momentum, and its power was not as strong when it reached Ajin. It only swept Ajin's body and sent her flying more than 10 meters away. With Ajin's Saint-Tier physique, although this level of attack was extremely hot, it could not cause her any real harm. All the fire demons, including the Fire Demon King, couldn't help but be dumbfounded when they saw this scene. The tip of the Great Sun Cone cracked on its own. They had never encountered such a situation before. Obviously, the Great Sun Cone couldn't have cracked on its own. However, how could such a powerful ultimate skill have such a problem? What shocked them even more was yet to come. Was it really a tie? Just as the mana from the collision of both sides dissipated in the air, a clear golden light had already broken through the layers of obstacles and descended on the Fire Demon Lord's majestic chest. It also carried the same strange white light. When the Fire Demon Lord's ultimate Yang Fire came into contact with the white light, it immediately dispersed to both sides. Then, the golden light bombarded heavily on its chest. Boom! The 8-meter-tall body of the Fire Demon Overlord was sent flying. This time, its body flew over 100 meters away from its enemy. The ultimate Yang Fire on its body scattered in all directions, and it kept spewing out golden flames from its mouth. Meanwhile, the golden light that had struck its body flew up into the air and turned into a stream of light that landed in Ajin's palm. It was the golden ring of extermination. No one knew better than Ji Dong how difficult it was for Ajin to do all this. Ajin's mana was level 89, and she had yet to break through the barrier of the 9th crown. It should be known that even if there was only a difference of 1 level between the 8th crown and the 9th crown, there was a huge difference in mana. Under such circumstances, she relied on her ancestral dragon bloodline, the golden ring of annihilation, and all her own mana. She did not borrow the power of the continuation matrix. and she actually forcibly blasted the fire demon lord, whose mana was above level 97. What kind of ability was this? The combat experience of a heavenly stemmed saint, as well as his ability to continuously improve, was vividly displayed by Ajin. Before the awakening of his bloodline, even 4 or 5 Ajins might not be a match for this fire demon overlord. Ajin did not chase after it. She opened her mouth, and a golden light was spat out. It was the great sun piercer that invaded the ultimate yang fire mana in her body. At the same time, she was also panting heavily. It was a success. In the sky, the Fire Spirit King took a deep breath and sighed. In terms of mana, there's almost no human that can compare to us. However, in terms of other auxiliary abilities and those mana weapons that enhance ourselves, we are far inferior to humans. Fire Demon King, do you know how your people failed? The Fire Demon King's eyes turned cold, and he said, Fire Spirit King, are you deliberately humiliating me? The Fire Spirit King shook his head and said, Of course not. Don't you think that this kind of attack is a great inspiration to us? If I'm not wrong, the human woman just used the power of the great bright sun cone to break the sharp point should be the power from the infernal domain. What defeated the aristocrats is a double ultimate skill. This attack is unexpected. Even if we take it, we have to be careful. Chapter 547. The Fire Spirit King paused for a moment and said in a deep voice, Furthermore, the golden bangle in her hand should be a divine artifact. The Fire Demon King snorted coldly and said, Humans are indeed cunning. If it wasn't for the restrictions that the realm of gods has on us, I would have brought my people to kill my way into the human world and let them know the power of our core world. Ajin stood on the spot and panted. The fire demon lord that she had sent flying slowly climbed up from the ground. The golden flames on its body had already disappeared, revealing its giant body. It was somewhat similar to the fire giant, but it was not made of rocks. Instead, it was like a special crystal. At this moment, there were a few huge wounds on the chest of the crystal. Golden liquid was flowing out of the wounds continuously and dripping onto the ground with a sizzling sound. It was as if what flowed out was not blood, but magma. Under the gazes of Ajin and a group of geocentric experts, the 8-meter-tall colossal body swayed for a moment. Finally, like a golden mountain toppling a jade pillar, it once again sat on the ground with a loud boom. Faced with the second sure-kill technique brought forth by the golden ring of annihilation, it had already suffered heavy injuries. Although it was not dead, it no longer had the strength to continue fighting. Ajin felt that it was a pity. If she had added the mana from the life-sustaining matrix to her attack just now, she would definitely be able to kill this guy instantly. However, in that case, she would not be able to participate in the next battle. Ajin was very stubborn. She knew that she could not love Ji Dong. Even if she loved him, there would be no result. She could still remember the pain that Chun Sichuan had suffered. However, she could not completely suppress her feelings for Ji Dong. It was in such a battlefield that she had to help Ji Dong to express her inner feelings. Therefore, she would not retreat until the last bit of mana was exhausted. Taking a deep breath, Ajin's eyes flickered. She raised the golden ring of annihilation in her hand, and the black ink crown on her head emitted a faint golden light that flowed into her body, replenishing the mana that she had consumed. With the help of the life-sustaining matrix and the golden ring of annihilation, she was confident that she could restore her mana to its best state. However, without the explosion of the life-sustaining matrix, there was no doubt that the opponent she would face in the next battle would be even more powerful. Ajin slowly walked back to Ji Dong's side and stood still. She closed her eyes and began to adjust her breath. She had a saint-level body, the golden ring of annihilation, and mana that could recover completely. She was confident that she could continue the next battle. Even if she could not defeat her opponent, she would definitely make her opponent suffer a blow that he would not be able to recover in a short time. The Fire Spirit King's judgment was very correct. Whether it was the golden dragon released by Ajin or the golden ring of annihilation, the white light that was attached to them was Ajin's demon realm. Ajin's demon realm was very unique. It was a special support demon realm that could be attached to magic skills or magic weapons. It only had one effect, which was the characteristic of the gold element: piercing. This demon realm was not as simple as piercing. It was a step further, called the destruction demon realm. It could break through the opponent's mana as much as possible, making it easier for its attack to be released. The effect of piercing was inversely proportional to the strength of the opponent's mana. The stronger the opponent's mana, the weaker the effect of piercing. It was undoubtedly the best to use it when there was a slight gap between the two parties' attacks. It was also with the effect of the destruction demon realm that the golden ring of annihilation could hide in the golden dragon and launch the second super killer attack, thus achieving success in one fell swoop. The following second round was uneventful, and the experts passed one after another. It was worth mentioning that Hong Yan's opponent was also a fire demon lord, but she won much more easily than Ajin. As soon as the battle was over, she immediately meditated to recover the mana she had consumed. After the second round, there were still 13 strong participants left. Jidong, Ajin, Hong Yan, and a 10-meter-tall powerful fire demon were among them. Besides them, 3 other fire demons had also made it to the third round. However, there was only one fire spirit participant left. The other 5 participants who had made it to the third round were all the strongest among the core elders. They had used the previous second round to fully display their powerful strength. More than one of them was confident that they were invincible except for the Grand Supreme Elder. At this moment, no one paid attention to Jidong and Ajin. Although Ajin had won, it had been an extremely difficult victory. Everyone's focus was mainly on Hong Yan and the 10-meter-tall fire demon. There was no doubt that they had shown the most powerful strength, especially the 10-meter-tall fire demon. Like Jidong, it had passed the second round easily and had not experienced any battle. Compared with Hong Yan, who had fought one more battle, obviously had an advantage. Naturally, more people favored it. The Fire Spirit King's voice sounded in the air 10 seconds after the last battle of the second round ended. The drawing of lots for the third round will begin soon. Get ready. Most of the experts who had made it to the second round did not look good. There was no doubt that the second round was much more difficult than the first round. It was not easy to defeat the opponent without suffering any losses. A large amount of mana was consumed, and some were even injured. After this battle, there were only a few who could maintain their full combat power. The Fire Spirit King could naturally tell what these experts were thinking. He said indifferently, tactics, strategies, and even luck are part of strength. If anyone thinks that this competition is unfair, you can quit at any time. An invisible majesty spread out. The sole power of a high-ranked sage was not a joke. Even if they were dissatisfied, the Earth's core experts did not dare to say anything. At this moment, Jidong was also communicating with Ajin through their souls. The two of them had a huge disagreement. Ajin, let's draw lots later. I will try my best to get us into the same group. Jidong expressed his intention to Ajin. However, Ajin immediately rejected. No, I still want to participate in another round. I am confident that I can win. It will not be too difficult for you to defeat your opponent in the next round. After winning this round, you can rest in the next round. It will be more advantageous for you. Even if I want to give up, I will wait until the next round. No, Jidong said firmly, this is not a joke. These Earth's core experts will not show mercy to us. You have already used up your remaining mana, so your strength can be said to be incomplete. You will be facing the top existences in the Earth's core world. If something happens to you, how can I explain it to Senior Griffin? Ajin glanced at Jidong and said, Are you afraid that something will happen to me because you can't explain it to your father? Jidong could not help but be stunned by her question. Ajin took a deep breath and calmed her unstable emotions. She said, Jidong, don't worry. Don't forget that I am the descendant of the ancestor dragon. It will not be that easy for them to kill me with my saint-tier physique. I have made up my mind. You don't have to say any more. Looking at Ajin's determined eyes, Jidong sighed in his heart. He knew Ajin's temper too well. As long as she had decided on something, it would be difficult for her to change her mind. She was right. With her saint-tier physique, It should not be a problem for her to protect herself. If it was really impossible, he could just break the rules of the competition and save her. The Fire Spirit King's voice still echoed in the air. There are a total of 13 people in the third round. In other words, in this round, if there's an extremely lucky person, he can directly skip the round and automatically advance to the next round without participating in this round of battle. This is the luck that I mentioned just now. Luck is also a part of strength. It is time to test your luck. As it spoke, the Fire Spirit King's eyes suddenly lit up. It shook its hands, and a brilliant red rain of light fell from the sky. This rain of light fell from the sky. When it fell, the Fire Spirit King automatically cut off its connection with the rain of light and spread its soul power to exclude any possibility of interfering with the rain of light from its soul defense. Of course, if any of the 13 people, including Ji-dong, tried to use their mana to control the rain of light, it would be detected immediately. When the rain of light fell out of thin air, the participants in the third round received a warning from the Fire Spirit King. Whoever tried to interfere with the rain of light would be directly eliminated. The Earth's core astral wind blew the rain of light down slowly. The light didn't have strong mana fluctuations, and it only felt a little warm when it fell on the body. Soon, it fell on everyone's body. Affected by the Earth's core astral wind, the amount of light that fell on everyone's body was naturally not the same. Ji-dong sighed helplessly. It seemed that this round really depended on luck. Under the supervision of the powerful soul power of the Fire Spirit King and the assistance and supervision of the other two Saint-tier powerhouses, the possibility of cheating was infinitely close to zero. He could also understand why the Fire Spirit King did this. In the first two rounds, no matter how the lots were drawn, everyone had to face each other and rely on their own abilities to fight for a good lot. This was also a test to control the battle situation. However, it was different in the third round. Those who could enter this round were not only strong, but the empty lot was too unfair to the others. Therefore, only luck could determine it so that the other participants could not question it. The Fire Spirit King said, "The lot drawing is over. The one who had the most light rain on him just now is the lucky one." As he spoke, he looked at the lucky one. Unfortunately, the lucky one this time was neither Jin nor Ji-dong, but Ji-dong was still very satisfied. The one who got the empty lot was Hong Yen. Is there something fishy about this? Ji-dong secretly criticized in his heart. The Fire Lotus King said that she and the Fire Spirit King could only suppress the Fire Devil King together. The one who got the empty lot was Hong Yen, who had consumed a certain amount of demonic power in the previous round. On the surface, everything seemed very fair. However, don't forget that the Fire Spirit King had the highest soul power among all the powerhouses present. If it really wanted to hide something with all its might, even the Fire Devil King and the Fire Lotus King wouldn't be able to find out. At least, Ji-dong didn't find out. Just as Ji-dong's eyes fell on Hong Yen's eyes also happened to look at him. When their eyes met, Ji-dong saw some encouragement in Hong Yen's eyes. The second person who had the most light rain on him will fight against the third person, and so on. The first round of the third round, get ready. The announcement of the Fire Spirit King interrupted Ji-dong's thoughts. When the light rain fell before, everyone was paying close attention to the situation of the light rain. Naturally, it was very clear who had more contact with the light rain and who had less contact with the light rain. Ji-dong walked out slowly. He was the third person who had the most light rain on him, and the second was a fire demon. Fortunately, it wasn't the tallest 10-meter fire demon with unfathomable cultivation, but one of the other 3 fire demons that passed the second round. However, Ji-dong's luck in this round was indeed not very good. The fire demon that he drew was the only one among the 3 fire demons that passed without being injured and had the most complete strength. Obviously, he was going to face a tough battle. This fire demon had the Een Fire attribute, which was the 10 Dark Flame Demon Overlord. It was the exact opposite of the one that Jin had defeated previously. Fortunately, my luck isn't too bad. Ji-dong thought to himself. If he were to draw the 10-meter tall fire demon now, it would be the last thing he wanted to see. After this round, there were still 7 people left, and there would be at least 2 or even 3 rounds to decide the final champion. If he were to encounter an opponent that he couldn't see through at this moment, even if he could win, it would probably be a Pyrrhic victory. It would obviously be better for him to encounter it later. Moreover, who else knew the abilities of the fire demons better than Jidong? He had inherited the skills of the 2 kings. Although the fire demon was strong, Jidong knew himself and his enemy well, so it was definitely easier to deal with. Jidong walked out slowly and walked toward the battlefield. In this short period of time, he had already thought about how to fight with this wheelchair. The tall dark flame demon overlord also walked out, and the black flames on its body danced continuously. With the Fire Spirit King's command, the first battle of the 3rd round immediately began. The thick hands of the dark flame demon overlord suddenly waved from below. The moment it raised its hands, Jidong had already taken a step forward. A faint silver light was attached to his body. It was the fantasy silver demon territory. His reaction speed was too fast to prevent his opponent from locking onto him. Almost as soon as the dark flame demon overlord raised its hands, he had already left his original position. On the ground, where Jidong had been standing, a surging black flame suddenly rose and condensed into the shape of a skull in the air. There was even a low, mournful howl. This was one of the powerful skills of the Dark Flame Demon King, called the Dark Flame Mournful Howl. Jidong also knew this skill, but he almost never used it. The reason was very simple. This skill required very strong judgment, and it couldn't lock onto the opponent when it was used. Of course, because of this, it was very powerful. However, Jidong didn't like this kind of skill. He had many powerful skills, so why did he have to use one that he couldn't easily control?